Sandra all the time is here with the cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth-telling, more problem-solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, my goodness. I got a frog in my throat. Give me one quick second, folks. We got to deal with this frog. Got to sip on some tea.
I hear the people talking. What are they talking about? This world's gone crazy, and I'm trying to find a way out. It's a singing symphony, playing as the ship goes down. It's a porcelain epiphany, breaking if it hits the ground. I gotta find a way out.
Alrighty. Good morning, K-Man. How y'all doing, honey child? I think I took care of that frog in my throat. He was bothering me, getting all up in my throat. I'm like, get out of here. I gotta be able to talk in the mornings. What on earth? Hello. Good morning, lovelies. How you guys doing, honey child? Big shout out to Miss Julia for my lovely new mug. Hold on. Let me show you guys. I'm just getting the links because y'all be messaging me, Miss Sandy, where's that link? And I'd be like, ooh, honey child. Hold on one second. Let me get it for you. Sending it in the channel right now. Don't forget, you can call us toll free, courtesy of Flow, 936-2626. Love it. Morning to our Instagram listeners. Good morning. YouTube, how y'all doing? I see you. Numbers are rising. Shout out to Facebook folks. And of course, Bobo 103.1. Good morning. Yes. All right, hold on. Let me forward this to Washington Boulevard. Big shout out to them. Y'all know who you are. Windsor Park crew, Dog City, Swamp, whatever you're calling yourself these days. I love it. Okay. Let me see here. All right, good. Very nice. All right. Think we're good. Let me just check the page on Facebook, see if we're showing up on the primary page, because, you know, like I said, Facebook getting kind of finicky. Oh, yes, we are. Good to go. Good morning, Miss Lucille, joining us from the UK. Fiona, oh, sorry, Flora. Got to make sure I'm reading that properly. Yes, so good to see you guys. All right. We're here for it. Buenos dias. 345 to the world, says Cortez. Marshall, good morning. Lucille, how you doing? Richard in the house from Round Rock, Texas. I think he always says that because he wants to hear me pronounce it and get a tongue twister. Round Rock, Texas in the house. Caymanians all over the world. Richard Parson, good morning, my lovely. How are you? Wee Wee is here. Strong Will, Barbara. Nicholas joining us from the UK. Patricia Blake, Irvlin, Marshall. Somebody calling me this morning. Good morning. I don't know. What do you mean coming in bad? Coming in bad how? The sound? Mm-hmm. That sounds like your internet, honey child. That sounds like buffering. Try restarting it and see what happens. All right, darling. Okay. She said no good logic. I don't know whose fault it is, but she said we weren't coming in too good on the iPad. She could hear it going. That sounds like buffering, tripping in and out. Sometimes you need to restart your modems. You know, you need to reset your house modems, your internet modems. All right. Thank you to Miss Julia. Look at my beautiful new mug. It says Sandra on this side. Let me turn it around. Got some hot tea in it. Ooh, we're bringing y'all the tea. And honey child, look at that. I love that. Look at that. See the little honey? Can y'all see it? Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Hold on. I'm trying to get it to focus on the honey child, on the mug. On the mug camera. See, you got a little bee and a little jar of honey. And the little jar of honey says honey child right there. It is so gorgeous. I love it. Thank you, Miss Julia. Appreciate the gifts. And she sent me some chocolates. Morning, Brother Felix. How you doing? I see you. Brianna's in the house. Williams. DJ Ryan, big up yourself. Nice. All right, so we're going to get it. Good morning, Lavana. You still on vacation, girl? Where are the poll results for Cayman West and Little Cayman? You mean for the debate? All right, we'll look at some of those this morning, time permitting. Ooh, my husband just sent me an Amazon link. Price drop again. I'm like, what? I just paid $10 for this thing, $10 more. I'm going to talk to Amazon about this. I'll message them after the show. Tell them, give me my $10 back. Good morning, Olivia. Jim is in the house. Pleasant good morning to you. Lavana watching from Tampa. Aw, my old stomping grounds. I love Tampa. I need to go more often. YouTube has a bad connection? Oh, anybody else having an issue in YouTube this morning? Good morning, Marshall. Thank you, Irvlin. Miss Miriam's in the house. Thank you, Dawn. Brenda, Emma. So we have some guests that are going to be joining us. They're running a little bit late, but we got Rolston today, and we have Miss Julie. No problem. We'll get to them. Did you guys not love the interview with Miss Julie the other day, Julie Hunter? I really enjoyed interviewing her. She's such an interesting person. So some of you have been messaging me and sending me some stuff. So let's talk about a few things political, all right? The first one is apparently Justin Frazier is up in his feelings and using AI to try to write some big time. Okay, I got confirmation that YouTube is okay. All right, we'll just go with it. Some big time long thing about, because he apparently knows all about journalism and equality in media. I'm like, listen, all I have to tell you guys about What's his name? Justin. That's Jordan's uncle, by the way. All I have to tell you about him is that he is the only Caymanian that went to the insurrection that they had on Capitol Hill. He was the only Caymanian that was there, protesting that somebody stole the election from Trump. Do I really need to say anything else about somebody like that? Lord Jesus. He's the mole on Trump's rear end. That's how much he loves Trump. Do I need to say anything else about Justin Frazier? Do I really need to? Some of his family here were so they were so ashamed to even be having the same last name as him. They're like, yes, Sandy, he's my cousin, but yes, Sandy, he's family, but I was like, listen. Oh, yes, this was back in January 2021. We actually interviewed him. So I'm going to share the link. You guys can go ahead and watch that for yourself. I don't need to say anything more about Justin. What he thinks of me, I can assure you, is no concern of mine. So don't even bother sending me anything from him. He can't even string a sentence together. He needs to rely on AI to help him out. That's how bright he is. Another Trumpster. Okay. Now, I know he's up in his feelings. I'm guessing he's CINP because of his cousin, his nephew. Fine, whatever. What you need to do is just go help your nephew. Don't worry about what I'm doing. These guys had an opportunity to come to the show. Nobody denied them that opportunity. And for whatever reason, and trust me, there's a good reason why I'm not going into the details of the reason, because if I did, they would lose votes. If I told you about the disorganization and just the pure nonsense and foolishness, they would lose votes. So, Dan Scott, I already had this conversation with you. Rein in your people, because I'm trying my best to just leave y'all the hell alone. But you keep poking the bear. We still got 30-something days left. I would not recommend that you do so. So, don't poke the bear. I know too much. And I'm not even taking it personal, but let me just say that you guys are next level ridiculous. It's my fault that some groups are organized in their advertisement CMR. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not my fault. Everybody got, and in fact, I met with CINP before TCCP, and TCCP still signed on the dotted line way before, well, CINP never did. And some of them are still contacting me this week, and I'm like, it's too late. I had a deadline, and everybody was notified of the deadline. Do not message me. You see, this is when people think that here I am, little old Caymanian, little girl from Georgetown. She don't know what she's doing with her platform. We're going to get the upper hand in her. I'm the one who's running the show, literally and figuratively. So if I set my packages and I said, it is this, that's what you choose from. Okay? You don't get to tell me. Dan Scott, imagine if I came into Ernst & Young and I said to you, these are the accounting services that I want, and this is what I'm going to pay for it. Y'all would look at me like I'm crazy. Rightfully so. So equally, that's not how my packages work. I'm just telling y'all, leave me alone, because I do not want to go into all of the details of what has transpired, because it does not make you guys look organized and look good, none at all. And your people are now reaching out to me because they see that they have 6 people. Literally last night, Craig Marion had 6 people watching his live stream. Really? That ain't my fault, Bobo. I've spoken to y'all so many times that I was getting physically sick from having to respond to your conversations. It's simple. You want something or you don't want something. Remember I told you guys, I don't like indecisive people. I don't like people who waste my time going back and forth and yeah. I'm like, ugh. My brain can only take so much of that nonsense. Do you want something or do you not want something? Simple as that. Make up your mind. And when you don't want something, And then you see other people who decided from December what they wanted. And they have been organized. They've been organizing their candidates. We're doing candidate interviews, this, that, the next thing. Don't be looking at me talking about, oh, I'm only featuring them. They're getting featured because they pay, donkeys. This can't be that hard for y'all to comprehend. Lord Jesus, Dewey. Good morning, honey child. Bless you too. They act like this is, my God, I don't know what to say. No, sir. And clearly they weren't paying attention, you know, because I told you guys from long time last year, what did Auntie say? Auntie said, it is pay to play time. You're not going to see a candidate on my platform during election time that has not paid for services. I am running a business. You see, they don't expect us to know how to run a business. Apparently, only certain people get to be business people around, yeah. And everybody else, you know, yeah, we not nobody, so we can't run a business. Oh, somebody lied to y'all, honey chill. Y'all don't know Sandy. Somebody been lying to you now. I don't know what's wrong with them. My God. Almost every one of her daily shows has over 6,000 views. And that's nothing new. So if y'all couldn't figure it out before now, that this is where it was going to be at for election time, that is nobody's fault but your own. So Justin, you can be up in your feelings all you want. I actually don't care. Good luck to you, honey child. Somebody sent me this earlier in the week in response to his comments. They posted it on his thing, but I'm pretty sure he would have deleted it. They said, this is what I'm going to post. Never thought I would be on here defending CMR. That's me chuckling. Elections are not cheap nor free. Gentle reminder, a blogger, vlogger, whatever you want to call me, don't matter to me, or whatever they go by, are not journalists, but opinion pieces. And that's the other thing that people don't get. There is a journalistic element to what we do. That's called the website. Go read it. The talk show is not about journalism. So when y'all get in your feelings and y'all want to talk about, oh, journalistic integrity and standards, this ain't it, Bobo. You don't understand. And the thing about it is Justin, what's his name? Oh God, I'm going to confuse him now. Justin. He should know this because he sits down and watch Trump foolishness all day long on Fox News. So why wouldn't it occur to you that that's a talk show, an opinion show, and everybody's entitled to their opinion? So this person goes on. They very cornerstone and foundation, the very cornerstone and foundation of YouTube and TikTok. You all state she's no one. So why does her opinion on her show matter? It makes those politicians sound a wee bit desperate. Stick to the issues, facts, and stop worrying about CMR. Or they should man up and say, it is CMR's audience they want to access, ... So what do you want CMR to do exactly? Give advertisement to the people who publicly stated that they would never go on CMR to now benefit from her platform for free? Those persons who claim CMR is partial to have paid for their service. Those persons who you claim CMR is partial to have paid for that service. As a business person, would you want your competitor to receive free advertisement where you have had to pay to now benefit due to poor planning and organization? Yeah, that summed it up pretty well. Not today, Bobo, and not until after April the 30th. So, whatever. DJ Ryan says, time to listen to some soca. When I get my radio station, DJ Ryan, you can come on there and do a little soca show, okay? All right, coming soon. It's 2025. Fit Jamaican girl, says Sandy, behave now. Friday is no time for behavior. Morning, Miss Jean. Over 400 people, Cortez says, that's right. No free time on CMR. Time is money. Don't you know it, honey? Honey child. Let me sip from my new honey child mug. Time is money. I can't go and pay CUC, Flow, what other bills I have, CNB. I can't pay my mortgage based on love and affection or air, okay? Yes, I have staff. CMR has, can y'all believe it? CMR has staff. We got writers, we got graphic designers, we got a website guy, the poor website guy. I'm pushing him this morning because I see a little issue on the site that I need him to fix. Right? We got other consultants that when he can't fix it, I need to go to them and pay even more money. We got social media people who manage my social media pages because guess what? Auntie is busy. Y'all should try it. You should try running a business. Justin, go run a business and then come and talk to me. Until then, continue to freeload off of Trump because God knows what you're doing in the United States of America. So they still up in their feelings. Some of them got in their feelings yesterday about the Heyman thing. And, like I said, Heyman's my cousin. I don't know him. But at the end of the day, it's really no hard feelings. I just think that you went out of bounds. Other family members have reached out. Biggie's actually, they were clarifying. Biggie would have been my second cousin. And listen, I want you to understand, I'm not giving Biggie no right because I understand that Heyman's mother, this is the conversation he probably should have been having. Heyman's mother was very young when she started a relationship with Biggie. Family says she was actually underage. Now, I don't know back in those days because they're kind of old compared to me. I don't know what the age of whatchamacallit was, but that would be too young. He was probably like double her age. And that's why I'm telling y'all, keep your children away from men. Okay? So she might have been a victim in all of this up until a certain point. But that does not explain this narrative that he taught her how to read, taught Biggie how to read. My cousin said, no way. Miss Ruth taught Biggie how to read. Yes, he might have had some difficulties and whatever. Like I said, it should have never even come up in the conversation. It makes me uncomfortable talking about these types of things. I don't want to talk about it. So if you don't want me to talk about it, don't you bring it up. Because when you bring it up, then people are like, Sandy, what's this? And I have to address it. Now, let's address Michael Miles this morning because I was quite taken aback. You'll see an editorial on our page about Michael. And I got to be honest with you. I only know Michael to see him. We did an interview with him about when the skate park was shutting down. Last time he was on their platform when he was running and stuff. And I don't know Michael well, but there are things that I have found out this election that do give me pause. The relationship or lack thereof with him and his daughter and him not owning or acknowledging her or whatever that is. That's low key. Like, I don't understand how any parent. Louis, oh my goodness, where have you been? We miss you. Louis, I feel like I've not seen you in years. What? Oh, Louis lives in, hold on. Let me see if I can remember. Oh Lord, I know you live somewhere that it snows in America. Not Texas. Somewhere in the Midwest, but how are you doing? I've not seen Louis in forever. Oh my God. Hi, Louis. So listen to me now. I was taken aback when people started to contact me. They said after I made my comments about I found him aggressive at the chamber debate, and other people arguing with me, no, Sandy, he wasn't aggressive. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I'll tell you, I listen to my instincts now, They don't often take me down the wrong path. So people reach out to me to basically say, Sandy, you're spot on about him. And not only is he aggressive towards adults, but he is aggressive towards children. And I said, what? And so they gave me numerous examples of kids who worked with him under the skate park, yelling and cursing at them, telling them that they're ignorant, they're stupid, and this sort of thing. I was so disappointed to hear that. Now, everybody's going to have an opinion. And you obviously have a right to share your opinion. Like I said, nobody's entitled to their facts. The facts are the facts. And so because I had never experienced this or heard of this before, I said, you got to come. If you're going to say that about this man, you got to come with some evidence. And guess what? He was recorded cussing out these children. People, they came with evidence. They scrolled back in their WhatsApp messages from 2023 and before, and they could show me stuff. So this editorial, I can tell you, is the opinion of several parents, but it ain't hearsay. And then on top of that, I had other people come forward and say, Sandy, praise the Lord that someone, I mean, I was so shocked. All I could say is, wow, like, really? I'm going to share with you what some people had to say about him. And here's the thing, you know, I can't tell y'all who be telling me what, but I'm going to tell y'all something that really set me back. Even people politically that he, you know, aligned with in the past have said to me, Sandy, Dan Scott not seen that side of him yet. They said that's the only issue is that he hasn't seen that side yet. And I said, what? And I said, oh my God, are you for real? And they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, it's only a matter of time. And I thought to myself, oh my God. Wow. See, there's a lot sometimes about people that you don't know because I guess, you know, we do a pretty good job of like hiding stuff. I don't know, but it's not so well hidden. And people have spoken to him apparently about his aggression towards children. And they're like, it's not necessary for you to be yelling and screaming at these kids. Now, I'm going to show you what, in response to that article yesterday, I got a number of messages. And here's what somebody had to say. More than one person. This person says, whoever told you that about Michael Miles is 100% correct. That man has anger issues and speaks down to people. And this is my response. I was like, oh, wow. I never knew that, you know, not the kids. He hides behind a fake character and people are seeing it. Well, you know what them old people say? You can't hide forever, honey child. You are who you are. Another person wrote in, and even this morning, they're continuing the conversation. Look, honey child. Excellent article on Michael Miles. He is a POS. He didn't even care for or take care of his own child. So how can he be expected to take care of somebody else's? Snaps. He's a very disingenuous man who will say whatever he has to in order to get what he wants. I guarantee you, hold on. Okay. Yeah, I guarantee if he is elected, he'll be the first one to flip and flop in order to benefit himself. I wonder what he's going to do with his company Inspire and all his government contracts. I guess he will probably transfer the company to his old, I'll let y'all read that part about the wife, or transfer it to his friend that works for him. He was aggressive and respectful to kids. He was aggressive and disrespectful to kids when he was at Hope Academy too. And I'm just like, whoa, I had no idea. Detroit, that's right, Louis. So good to see you. Shioma says, true, he kicked my grandson out of his school, cussing him, and I have proof. OMG. And then I'm even hearing people saying to me, you know, one mother saying she would love to send her child to Inspire to do some courses, but she refuses for her child who's already suffering from, you know, some learning challenges and stuff to be in that environment, to be yelled and screamed at this man. And for somebody to get aggressive with him because that's not going to help his situation. So she's instead saving money for him to go abroad. And I've had other people who said, listen, they wanted to sponsor people to go to Inspire and they wouldn't do it because the feedback they've gotten from people who had gone wasn't positive. And I'm like, OMG, what are y'all saying to me? Oh, man. Wow. What a hot mess. Oh my God. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just at a loss. Somebody said, by the way, you know, Michael Miles is your cousin too. Stop it. Everybody in Cayman is family to me. Like, seriously, all of Anna. Rolston is my cousin too. I tell you all that 23andMe. I went and deleted my 23andMe data, by the way. Since they've gone bankrupt, I don't want anybody having my DNA sample all over Africa or God knows where. So the advice is to go delete your data. I have it on the other one too, the Ancestry. But I'm family to everybody. Jeez, I'm peace. We're cousins, you say? This is my next cousin now. She know everybody. She's telling me that we're cousins. Really? How we family? Break it down, honey child. What a mess. I told Rolston when I first did it, I said, Rolston, you and me cousins, you know, he said, no, Sandy, no, we're not family. I said, you sit there. I said, your daughter is showing up on my profile as a cousin. And he said, well, that's probably from her mama's side of the family. I said, and I kept scrolling. And then I saw his niece, Rashana, on there too. And I said, no, honey child, we family. He needs to do it. He needs to do Ancestry. We all family, but my gosh. But listen, I don't care if you're family or not. You got to hold yourself to a particular standard when you're putting yourself up for election. Now, the thing that surprised me about Michael Miles is these allegations were since the last election. And I'm thinking, all right, let's say you have anger issues, right? And you had them before. When you start to get into the political arena, you get yourself therapy. You get it under control. The fact that he was doing and behaving like this with people's children since the last election, you sure you want to be running for office? That don't make no sense. And children, listen, I had an episode with Chelsea. You know, we've talked it through. We've worked it out. But if you know me, you know that that was completely out of character because I love children. I go out of my way to help children. I don't like adults touching children. I don't like adults beating up on children. I don't like adults yelling. I told you guys, I don't yell at my daughter. I'm like, no. We need to respect your children, right? And be more gentle but firm, discipline. That's what I'm all about. So it gets under my skin when I see adults getting a little bit too aggressive with kids. So I was taken aback by this editorial. And so I saw some of you or one of you commenting about it. And it's actually a very, very good piece. It says, actions speak louder than words, a parent's perspective on true leadership. Y'all need to go read it because it is very, very interesting. Threatening the kids that if they didn't return their little staff shirts at the park, that he was going to charge them. And I mean, all kind of like madness, you know? What, you know, these kids, they're teenagers. This is their first job. You can expect them to make mistakes. And I mean, I would have thought that as someone who has worked with youth their entire lives, that you would understand that. You got to give young people some degree of grace, right? So I don't know. Good luck to you, Michael, but try and get the anger issue under control because it's not a good look. I don't know. What a hot mess. Anyway, it is what it is. My cousin's not going to tell me. His grandfather is what? Yeah, like his grandfather is Steve McField. Like the Steve McField? His grandfather. Steve has a son when he was younger called Kendall. My God, listen, you gotta know certain cousins and stuff in the family now because they know everything. So she breaking it down for me now. So he's really a McField then. Oh, but where do Miles come from? Lord. So he's a McField. What? No, sir. And Michael is Kendall's son. Yes, sir. Cayman Connections 101, honey child, family. But I've resolved myself. That's why I couldn't marry Caymanian because I know I am related to everybody in Cayman, honey child. I used to tell my dad that. It was so funny. I used to say as a teen that I'm like, Dad, I could never marry anybody from Cayman or fall in love with anybody from Cayman because I'm gonna find out. Because again, I didn't grow up here, so I don't know a lot of the connections and the stories. You know, I'm gonna find out. This is before DNA days. I'm gonna find out that person's my cousin. So let me go find me. You know, the first one, he was blue-eyed American. You know, nice guy, and now I got me a nice little Indian Jamaican. So you know, hopefully there won't be another husband. But I'm just saying, if there is. Can't be a Caymanian. So sorry. All Caymanians are eliminated from the pool of possibilities. Miss Beulah, good morning, honey child. See ya. Says Michael can say goodbye to his political campaign now that CMR is on the case. Lord have mercy. Dee Dee, good morning. The Zoe says you should give him a call to get his side of the story about the kids. Something isn't right. Zoe, trust me, if this was even a debatable situation, I would. But like I told you, people have evidence on them phone going back years, and some people don't delete nothing. So I'm not asking you guys about this. It was recorded, several recordings of him. So all I'm telling you is there's no dispute about what was said. That's all I'm going to say. If there was any dispute, then that would have been a different something. Happy Friday, Abby. Mirstar calling Jada over to the comment section. That goat mouth kills, says Sia. Lord have mercy. Boot camp, morning, Sandra. Somebody else giving me the rundown. No, he is not. Kendall is Michael's daddy. Yes, sir. Y'all good. All right. Let's bring in Rolston into the conversation. Kendall has his mother's last name, and yes, Michael's father is Steve McFeel. Well, that means that we cousins then. All family, honey child. One big, I'm not gonna say happy family, but one big family. Wow. That is so fast. I never knew that. Hello, cousin. Lord Jesus. This person says, well, you and I are not related. We have fallen in love, but you know. You know what? Can I tell you something? I can't call this person's name, obviously. They're a civil servant. But the first time I met him, oh, my spirit took to you. I loved you at the campsite that day. I was like, oh my gosh, he is so smart and engaging in conversation. And, you know, I'm attracted to intelligent people, and I'm attracted to people who can think and have good conversation. Physical features, whatever. But this guy, I was like, oh my gosh, he is smart. I even asked my cousin, who is he? Yes. I was like, I've never seen him around here before. Who he be? But anyway, yes, I'm glad that we're friends because I love your spirit. Let's bring in Mr. Rolston into the conversation. Hold on one second now, honey child. Now I'm going to tell you all, you see, I always tell people, you don't know, you all see what CMR addresses, but you don't know the stuff that CMR doesn't address. And there's a lot of stuff that I say nothing about. Trust me, I can get some information. Seriously, for real. And so I had someone before tell me about Michael in the skate park. In fact, if I looked this up, so that was when the skate park closed, and this person had some inside information. They're like, Miss Sandy, this is not all what it's cracked up to be. You better do some fact checking. And I was like, oh man. I was like, y'all being petty. Leave the man alone. Yada, yada. And I didn't do anything with that information. But you see, the good Lord has a way of bringing things full circle. That's all I'm going to say on this. Because they were even saying he was taking credit for stuff there that he should have been taking credit for. And I was like, what? I said, no way. That was way back last year, and I didn't say anything about it. I didn't do anything about it. I just sat on it and didn't make a move. So Auntie sits on a lot. Louis says criminals are controlling the system from the top down. No criminals only. No criminals, only ones that caught. No criminals, only ones that caught. Okay. Mirror Star. Denver said someone told me the other day that Sandy is just like her daddy. In what way? Well, I'm not a drunk, and I'll admit that Uric had a problem with liquor. So what does that mean? Just like him, how? I mean, he would tell you the truth now. He wasn't gonna lie to you. So, but he liked to drink a little bit too much. So, you know, I say every generation needs to improve on the previous generation. I mean, I can tell you all that because he's my daddy. Okay. He was also a womanizer. I think most seamen were into that kind of life too. And I would tell him, you know, I would tell him straight, Papa Uric, you know, I can't support this kind of foolishness. So anyway, I walk like him. And everybody tells me I look just like him. They say, you got his big frog eyes, you know, Sandy. I say, yeah, no DNA test was required in that instance. I can tell you that. Rolston, cousin Rolston, you must be having a good chuckle this morning. How are you? Rolston, I can't hear you for some reason.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. What's going on with audio?
You can't?
Hello? You're saying something, but I can't hear nothing. Yes.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Bring it in.
Give me 1 second.
Check you're not muted in my system, but check your audio and see. Yeah. Check it and see what's going on. I can tell Rolston was laughing. He's like, Lord Jesus. It's a Friday. Turn up Friday. Miss Joyce Sand, good morning. Denver says, no, not the drinking, the chatting, and not in a bad way. Eyes, look, and talk. You guys can hear him? You can? But why can't I hear him? Oh. All right, let me see what's going on here now. Let me check my buttons. No, nothing's muted. Hold on, Raleigh. Let me just check my settings. I haven't changed anything lately. So you guys can hear him. I don't hear him on radio. Oh. But they can hear him on social. Just check some of your settings, Rolston, and see what might be going on. We hear him on Facebook, but nobody can hear him on radio. Okay, so you check your settings there, Rolston. I'm not quite sure.
Are you hearing me now?
What is going on? I'm just double checking my settings, but I had people on this week and we were all okay. I try not to touch anything. When everything's working, I'm like, listen, don't touch it. You know, don't touch nothing. I'm just double checking. I'm just double checking my settings, but I had people on this week. Nope, everything looks good here. I try not to touch anything. When everything's working, yes, everything looks good here. Maybe log out and try logging back in, because I realized I didn't hear you when you came into the studio either. You know, normally I would hear you, so that's weird. Everything looks good. So I don't know. All right, check it out, Bobo. Check it out and see.
Sandra, people are hearing me on YouTube, apparently. Can you hear me yet?
There we go, honey child. I can hear you now. Say that again. Rolston? Talk to me again. Cuz, say it again. I can hear you. Hello? Talk again. Hold on.
Sandra, my screen is freezing and I'm not hearing you. I'm going to leave the studio and come back in.
All right. I could hear him. I know what the issue is.
I see the messages saying they can hear me loud and clear, but I can't hear you either, Sandra.
Okay. All right.
Some conspiracy.
Let me kick you out of the studio and then you can log back in. All right. I could hear him. I had my tab muted. Lots of moving parts to all this kind of stuff. So I have to mute tabs a lot of times. Like right now, Facebook tab is muted, YouTube, WhatsApp tab, because I'm using all these apps. And if I don't have them muted, you would hear every time somebody pings me on Facebook or whatever. So apparently I had that one muted. Something told me to check that, you know. Marva's in Jamaica. Hello, honey child. What's up? Enjoying yourself, I hope. Jamaica is such a beautiful country. Facebook is good. All right. He'll log back on and we can speak to cousin Rolston. Everybody's a cousin around, you know. Who else is my cousin? Oh Lord, just please don't tell me that Makiva Bush is a cousin. I don't want to hear that one. That one I can't accept. Sorry. I don't. You say you're backstage, but I don't see you. I don't see you, honey child. Hello, hello, honey child. Don't tell me that Makiva my cousin. You know, me and you gonna fight. Okay, can you call the show so everybody can hear you? Because you call them a private number. 936-2626. All right, no problem. All right, somebody call and defend Michael. Good for them. All right, let me send Rolston this link. I don't understand why. You're my cousin too? Lord have mercy. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning, dear. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to call
okay.
just to stick my 2 cents in on support of Mr. Michael.
Yes.
I don't condone the whole cursing at kids. I was super mad at you with the whole Chelsea situation.
Yeah.
I'm so happy how that worked out. But I'll tell you something. As a single mom for a very long time, when I was going through what I was going through with my own oldest son, Mr. Michael had that hard conversation with me. And there's a lot of us that, oh, he's just a child. Oh, he's just a teenager. It's not okay to show up late to work. It's not okay to show up, crush up with clothes and your pants hanging down. And we're teaching them what to do in the future. And I would love to hear the evidence, but what he has done for our community, can we weigh it? Can we weigh what he's done to, okay, then he messed up and he yelled at some kids, but sometimes we just need to have these hard conversations, and sometimes they need to get yelled at, but not cursed at, which I understand. But
yeah, you see,
I don't vote for him.
Yeah,
I'm not in that constituency, but I just
and I understand. Listen, I understand tough conversations with kids, and if it was a one-off situation, I would feel differently. But when I'm having, even after this has gone up, parent after parent saying, "Oh yeah, I experienced that. I experienced that," it seems like it is a personality issue, and that is why. You know, when I brought up, I thought he was a little bit too aggressive towards a woman at a debate. That I didn't like that, right?
Yeah.
And then when Miss Sabrina was on, and you remember her response was like, "Oh yeah, you know, he's always been like that. Like I went to school with him." So she kind of dismissed it. Like she didn't take it on. She didn't get offended. She said, "Michael's always been like that since school days. So, you know, it's just his personality." That even made me think about even more, because you see, what happened with Chelsea and I, that's not my personality. I stepped out of who I am 97% of the time, especially with children, and went in an area that I should have never gone. And so when someone is aggressive in all aspects of their lives look like, that makes me pause. Because as a woman, I know that as women, we don't want to be around aggressive men in the workplace. We don't need any more aggressive men in politics. We don't need aggressive men in their homes. We don't need aggressive men who work with children. So I get what you're saying. And like I said, I've heard things in the past that I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. When this person came forward and started scrolling through their phone, showing me conversations with their son, showing me how parents have addressed this directly with him, and it didn't stop the behavior, that's when I said, whoa. But thank you.
I hope he comes on. Has this open discussion, because he is somebody who has put in the work and from the bottom up. And I understand these concerns, and I really hope he comes and addresses it and owns it and deals with it head on, like you said. And if he doesn't get in this area, this doesn't stop him. But thanks very much.
Thanks, my darling. I appreciate it. All right, Rolston, where'd you go? I just saw you and then you disappeared. All right. Come on back in, honey child. Maybe he's having some internet. Chelsea, relaxing music, has a little smile. Hello, Chelsea. Oh, beautiful, beautiful picture. Island Pearl says, Big Mac is your cousin, Sandy. Please say a couple Hail Marys for me, but I don't believe you. Aggression is not okay, says Mirror Star. Shioma says, I worked with him at the old Hyatt and he was in HR. I was in accounting. I'm a CPA. And what was your experience at work? I don't know. I'm not into, I don't like aggressive people like that. No, honey child. I don't know. This person, another parent. What a hot mess. Somebody said about Rolston and Macker family. Hopefully on the other side of the family, not the side that we're family on. Oh my goodness. You see, yeah. Here's the other thing that's important to consider. In Parliament, we have a lot of testosterone flying around the place. And unfortunately, that's not a good thing. That's why when they get into caucus and cabinet, they're fighting and going on and acting the fool. So, you know, I also think about it, my apologies, from that perspective, in that we don't need any more of that type of vibe in there. You got to be able to have disagreements with people and not go there as an MP. So I don't know. And of course, you know, Mr. Michael is free to, you know, address this if he'd like to. Ay. What a hot mess. Rolston, where you at, honey child? I'm ready for you. Let me see. Somebody else sent me something here. Right. I need to go back to my messages from last year. And see, that would have been when, August? I'm telling you, man, I was getting some interesting messages. All right, I hear you, and I'm ready for you. Good morning, sir. Can you hear me? Rolston, you're in.
Hello.
Hi.
Sandra.
Yes, sir.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's great. And I'm hearing you.
Wonderful. And I'm seeing fine. Oh, we got a caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. I'm calling about a situation I had this morning.
Oh.
With Health City.
With who, sorry?
With Health City.
Okay.
Yeah, I called because I had my grandson with me, and he's having an asthma attack.
Oh.
So when I called him, they said that he could come to the eastern, and I live in that area, in the Eastern District. Got there, they said that there is no pediatrician on staff.
Oh.
So I had to go away with my 6-year-old grandson with asthma attack. And I'm still in traffic, can't even get to Georgetown Hospital.
Oh. So where was, I think they have a pediatrician, but he must have been Kamada Bay.
Yeah, so they only cater to Kamada Bay. What is at the eastern side? Why is not someone at the eastern side to deal with the kids there? Because they're not white?
I don't think that's the problem. We'll certainly inquire about it, but yes, I mean, they've only recently brought on the NIC unit and the pediatricians and stuff like that. And I think those services, because we have announced that here, are only being offered at Kamada Bay. And that has, you know, they've never had a pediatrician. They didn't tell me
that. I called this morning.
Yes.
And they didn't tell me that. And because when I reached there, the receptionist there said that the calls are routed through to India.
The calls in Cayman? No. That doesn't sound right. I've called there myself, and I've never.
The receptionist told me that the number I called goes through to India. The calls are being routed to India.
Well, we're gonna ask Shamari about that right now. We're gonna inquire.
Right now,
I've called all the time, and I've never gotten that.
I'm right now in traffic, leave from all the way Breakers to Eastern, Health City. Now I'm still in traffic with my grandchild, who is having an asthma. And I had to stop along the way about 3 times so he could vomit, and I still can't reach Georgetown Hospital.
All right. Let's find out what's going on. Thank you so much, caller.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So, let's see if Mr. Shamari is available this morning. I didn't think they had a pediatrician because remember now they've only recently gotten one. So good morning, caller.
Good morning. I hope that lady is still listening. She needs to call 911 and either get an ambulance or a police escort to the hospital.
I think so
too. If her grandson is that sick, I believe she needs to call 911. They can escort her through traffic to the hospital.
Yes.
I hope she's still listening, or maybe you can call her back.
Yes, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. All right, let's give her a call back. Because of course we don't want anything to happen to this child.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. A caller just made a suggestion that you should probably call 911 and request an ambulance who can then get you through the traffic, or an escort, so that your grandson.
All right. I am almost there.
Okay. All right, my dear. Keep us posted.
So thanks for the suggestions.
Yes, dear. Yes, and that was actually a good suggestion. I hadn't even. Well, we're going to get to the bottom of this one for sure. Let me see here now. Let's see.
Sandra.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
All right, let me okay. Rolston, yes, sir.
Morning, Sandra. No, the second caller suggested what I was going to try and jump in and say is, in an emergency, whilst a lot of people do believe CMR has all powers to do all things, 911 and an ambulance is the best route.
Yes.
So, and medical care and health care, I think one of the things that we have that is, honestly, Sandra, the name of your show is critically important, the cold hard truth. Not every hospital is going to be all things to all people.
That's right.
Because especially in a small community, you have to have centers of excellence. Because if everyone tried to do the same thing, then you're going to have lots of average and mediocre service. The fact is, and I heard the comment she made, on an average day, how many children are going to be sick to go in the eastern districts or across Cayman period? Most children are healthy, right? So we have to accept that hospitals and healthcare providers have to operate their facilities based on the volume,
the demand. Yeah.
Yes. And so we've got to be fair about these things. So I would hate.
I agree, because and her conclusion that it's just because they're white or whatever. No, I don't think that that's the case at all. Let's be honest, Cayman Bay would service more people because you're closer to Georgetown, West Bay, the larger populations, for sure. Good morning, caller.
Right.
Morning. When Mr. Rolston started to speak, it was too low, so we lost you on radio.
Oh, shoot. All right. Move that mic up as well, Rolston.
All right.
And then thank you so much. And then if you can also, in your little volume settings there, I'm going to show you where. Just go into more volume settings.
Just turned it up.
Yeah, you'll see input.
Slide that. Turned it up.
Okay, good. And I'm pumping up on my side as well. So give me 1 second. We need to get you back on radio, which means we got to play some music. I think the settings are a little bit sensitive, but there you go. So let's play a little something. right, folks. Thank you so much for confirming that radio is back. Because, yes, I don't know when it happens. I wonder if there's not a way for me to know when it drops. I should inquire. But anyway, I'm going to be starting my own station soon. So I'll have more than enough time to figure all these things out. Child, that's going to be a real interesting lesson for me.
So is that a little preview, a little hint there, Sandra, of things to come?
Yes, it's not much of a secret because I've been putting it out in the ethers that it's coming in 2025.
There you go. There you go.
CMR TV coming too. Sit there and wait.
Big things.
Oh, yeah. Good things happening in 2025. All right. So listen, Rolston, thank you so much for that suggestion. Maybe for the benefit of our radio listeners, since it cut out, maybe you can say it again. Because I think they might have missed part of what you said just now.
Which bit was that, Sandra? In regard to the healthcare?
When you heard the lady speaking about the centers of excellence and medical facilities. Yes.
That's right. I mean, listen, Cayman is 80,000 people, and we have to accept how much limitations that places on all of our systems, including healthcare. Yeah. And so you're not going to find all things and all services at every single facility. In particular, childcare. 99% of children are extremely healthy. Children get a flu, have a minor injury here and there, but children are generally very healthy. And so you're going to find that in a lot of countries that specific hospitals might not have a lot of facilities and care for certain types of patients because they didn't have to concentrate and become, centers of excellence in what they do. And so I certainly, the suggestion about color of skin, I think was it was because of the fact that she was a bit frantic. And when we get, it's frustration. And you get frustrated. But the right thing to do, I think, Sandra, to remind all of your callers and all of your listeners is in an emergency, you call 911, not CMR. Sandra and CMR has lots of powers, but, they're not going to clear the traffic. They're not going to get you an ambulance and get you to the facility you need to get to. Yeah. So, just very, very important. But, Sandra, if I pick up on some of the conversation you've been having, and I think you've learned this about me in the background in terms of our interactions and people don't get to see all of you, period, as a person. But one of the things that I've been very careful and cautious about is there's like you, Sandra, there's lots of things obviously I would acquire in terms of information over the years, having served. But I've chuckled to myself a number of times when I've seen some candidates make certain proclamations. And, it's very interesting. There's an old saying that the chickens always come home to roost. And so having heard the discussion about events that unfolded, I presume, up at Black Pearl Skating Rink, I sent you a link, Sandra. And I watched a video of Mr. Miles and I chuckled to myself and I said, wow, how quickly you forget that the reason that you came back to the Cayman Islands and actually got back in the civil service was because of my term in office. Let me explain that, Sandra. He originally left the service and was fired, as I understand it, or resigned out of the service because on a show like this, as a sitting civil servant, the then Minister of Education, Mr. Roy Borden, was on the radio. And he called in and basically berated Mr. Borden's education policies. Sandra, as a civil servant, you would know that's a huge no-no, right? Okay. And so when we were putting together our approach to holistically serving all of our children, we knew that we needed to really target at-risk kids. And when I say at risk, let me make sure I'm clear. This isn't just kids that are getting in trouble. This is kids that were at risk educationally, because that's the approach we took in the ministry when I was there. And so the suggestion was made, hey, what about reaching back out to Mr. Miles because of the work he had done when he was at Bonaventure as the house manager there. And so obviously ministers are not in charge of hiring and firing. However, the administrative arm that went right up to the very top did inquire of me and say, listen, we know what happened the last time this person was in the system. we would happen again. As a minister, do you feel comfortable knowing that this happened with the previous Minister of Education? Would you now, as the current incumbent, feel comfortable? Because we got to understand in these sorts of things that, look, behaviors will have the consequences, right, Sandra? And so I took the view that, listen, in Cayman, you give people a second chance. You give people a second chance. If there's something genuine good that they have to offer, you give them the second chance. And I told the then administrative arm of government that, from my perspective, I had no issues at all. It happened a number of years before that. And so I had no issues, bottom line. And so he came to the ministry and was our at-risk youth coordinator. Now, you would swear when you hear him talking that, you know, all of that piece of the history winds up being, I think, forgotten conveniently. I sent you a press release, Sandra, on Black Pearl. I think you've received it.
Yep.
I sent you on WhatsApp, right? But you will see how that got started as it related to young people in Cayman. You will see that I was the minister at the time who ensured that government found the funds to make that a reality. And so I find it quite ironic in 2025 that a candidate goes up there and has a huge video and makes it seem as though this is something that he did, when in fact that would never have come to fruition if it wasn't for my approach to how we ensured we addressed the entire child when I was Minister of Education. And Black Pearl was simply a strand of how we approached youth. Because I took the view, Sandra, that the education system had the most contact with children. And so if we were going to have the most contact with children, we had to build that holistic approach. And so Black Pearl became one strand of the national after-school program that I started, where we ensured that we closed that gap from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. when we know children are at the greatest risk, because typically parents are at work. And so a lot of times children are unsupervised. With all the will in the world, a lot of parents can't have someone at home all the time. And so, you know, that approach that we took, along with the commissioner of police at the time, and let me give further credit, the person that really pushed this was a police officer up in West Bay now, Stephen Myers. Right? He was the one that
stick a pin, Rolston. Stick a pin. You know, life has a funny way of bringing things full circle. You know, when I was just saying that I gotta show y'all the proof, because whenever possible, without compromising people, I do my best to have my facts before I speak. So you just heard me say, right, that I had received some comments last year when the park was closing about Michael, and I did not say anything about it. I didn't do anything about it. I just sat on it. Now I'm going to show you how life has a way of bringing things full circle, right? Of course, I had no idea that you would even be touching on this issue here today. But let me go back to August. Give me 1 second here now. Let me go back to August of 2024 with the screenshot to prove the point. Rolston is not sitting here hating on Michael or telling any lies here this morning. This is supported by a message I received from this same officer back in 2024. So much so, I was going to show it, and I took his name out just for privacy's sake, but I can tell y'all it was from him. And he said to me, "Good morning, off the air. Can you call me re the skate park? There's a lot of mistruths from a certain person as to how this park became an icon. Also moving forward, I have some ideas. My name is Stephen Myers, RCIPS. This park is heartfelt. My kids grew up in the park. You may be able to help in a positive way." And he says, "I know that an initiative regarding skateboarding, FYI, Michael Miles did not in any way start this. Proof, go on YouTube. Mike Valet, Cayman Islands. Pat Duffy, Cayman Islands. I am the one who introduced Michael Miles to the park. And so he shared this information. I didn't know what to make of it. I don't know Mr. Myers, PC Myers himself. And I thought, oh my God, is this another situation? You know, CMR, we be trying to avoid drama. We don't want to be in the mix. And I was like, okay, well, the park is shutting down. That's basically what I said. I said, well, it's too late now. The park is shutting down. So I was just going to leave it alone. But Rolston, this raises a bigger issue that I want us to discuss here today. Listen. Candidates are out there padding their resumes. They're straight up lying about what they've done. I've not addressed this yet about Heyman Rankin, but I fully intend to. This man has also inflated his professional life, talking about he has worked for a decade with organizations that he was only there 5 years for. He's claiming over 10 years of experience when he was only there for half the amount of time. Then he issued a statement, and somebody sent it to me yesterday. So whoever sent it, oh, hold on. I remember who it is now. Hold on. Where he apologized and said, oh, in the moment, he got it wrong. How do you get wrong, especially when you got notes in front of you and you're reading partially from a script? How do you get it wrong? That you worked for a place for 5 years and you're up here saying 10 years. Candidates, you cannot continue to lie when you're running for political office and expect that people are not going to put you to task on what you have done and what you have accomplished in this country. It doesn't benefit, because then he had to go back and issue an apology. And in this statement, he says, here's the video of the chamber candidate forum in case you missed it. The evening was full of bold ideas, blah, blah, blah. He goes on as his excuse to say, I was immersed in the conversation. I was so immersed in the conversation that during my closing remarks, when reflecting on my time at the office of the ombudsman, I said nearly a decade when I meant nearly half a decade. When you're passionate about a topic, sometimes the words get ahead of you. Oh, Bobo. Come on now.
Well, Sandra, I don't know how many words got ahead. What I can say is I wasn't going to say anything about this because it's not my style, right?
Yeah.
But when I heard another kerfuffle surrounding this candidate, I just had to pause and think to myself, okay, is there anything else out there that he's either purposely avoiding telling the truth about, right? Because the fact is, the only reason he had any contact with that park, and I can tell the world this 110% for a fact, go to the Compass article. So Sandra, maybe if callers are coming on now, they might know what I'm talking about. But that Compass article I just sent you is an accurate representation of how Black Pearl Skating Rink got started. And in fact, his only involvement was because the then chief officer decided that this would be one of the areas that he would have direct contact with outside his job in schools dealing with athlete students. So this was part of his job, right? So myself as Minister of Education, along with the Commissioner of Police, we jointly funded this park. And as it says in the press release, and I want to make sure we're clear about this, Sandra, because, you know, people pick things up and pick up half of it. You didn't bring up Stephen Myers' name as a police officer. It's clearly in this press release, right? This is a public document. That's in the Compass from the 8th of February, 2013. And so, yes, it was PC Myers who really pushed this. I give him that credit 110%. He was the one that really pushed this as a program, because at the time, everyone knew that that national after-school program that I started that had at that point somewhere around 1,000 children enrolled in various activities. He promoted this as one of the possible activities, because that's what I was promoting to the community, was come up with safe, good activities that we can involve our young people in. And this was one that he pushed. And certainly when we got wind of it in the ministry, I was certainly happy to provide some of the funding. The commissioners, but through his budget, the then commissioner provided the other bit of the funding. And because it was targeted for youth, that is how Mr. Miles became involved with the program. Yet I now see a video that, if you look at the video, certainly my impression of the video, you would think this program was his brainchild and was something that he basically created. But that's simply not the case. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and it's right there on the screen for the entire Cayman Islands to see.
Yes, Rolston. Let me just take a quick commercial break, Rolston. My apologies. I've just got to sort something quickly.
Great news, K-Man! Tim Hortons is finally open and ready to serve you. Start your day right with our delicious all-day breakfast, or grab a box of our famous Timbits and a dozen donuts for a sweet treat. Need a quick pick-me-up? Swing by our drive-thru for your favorite espresso drink anytime. We're open weekdays from 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. on the weekends, closing 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, with 2 entrances at the Shamrock Road Roundabout in Red Bay. It's time for Tim's.
All right, folks. My apologies. I had to take a quick call. So, Rolston, yeah.
I wondered what was happening because I saw the phone fly up by your ear, Sandra, and I said, is this the back call?
No. Delivery item I just needed to give instructions for. But thank you so much for clarifying this, because again, I mean, I think that, listen, candidates come from all walks of life with all varying types of experiences and whatever, but you can't be dishonest on the campaign trail about what you have done in your community. You know, I hear other candidates, and I'm here to call them out, right? Say, oh, I've been involved in the community. Let's take, for example, Donna Bush. I like Donna. I don't have any issues with Donna whatsoever. I like her, has a nice personality. She talks about her involvement in the community and how much she's done. The only thing that I know that Donna has ever done in terms of community work is working with Miss Teens and, you know, the pageant world, right? The way in which she coached what she said, you get the impression that she's done more than that. But the fact that she did not provide any specifics, even at the chamber forum, I was like, that, you know, if you can't even tell me what you've done, then it can't be that you've done much. I mean, if you've only worked with pageant girls, there's nothing wrong with that. Say it, own it, whatever. But don't make it sound like you've done so much more when you actually have not, outside of your job, right? I don't know. And then, I don't know, Rolston. I think that people just need to be more honest, because if you can't be honest on the campaign trail, how are we going to expect you to go into political office and be honest about the stuff that you get done or that you don't get done? Or are you going to go in there and be trying to take credit for work that another minister or somebody else did? Or, you know, it's just a bad taste. And so I'm not one that can support individuals who cannot be honest when they're trying to get our vote. That to me is a critical flaw.
Absolutely. And that's why, Sandra, you've noticed that everything that I ever say to you, I have a document to support it, right? Because it's all about having your documentation and making sure that you can support what your claim is. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And I had a chuckle on the Radio Cayman forum where I heard one of the young candidates say basically insinuate he's an engineer, when I know he's not an engineer. But, you know, I didn't say anything. You know, I looked on and I'm like,
it's like, I'm not picking on Justin, not Justin, what's his nephew called? Jordan. I'm not picking on Jordan, but Jordan also said he's had like 20 years or something of experience in tourism. He's only 28 years old. So when did he start working in tourism? I mean, I get that your parents are, but that's like me saying that my daughter, because I take her to work, is a journalist for CMR. Sometimes she's sitting there, but she can't count this as work experience. I mean, come on, not for nothing, but that doesn't work.
Sandra, what has caught on in West Bay North? So everything is got to put it in perspective. Experience over experiments has spread like wildfire in West Bay North. And so the candidates up there have recognized from the feedback they're getting on the ground that people want a mature, experienced individual who's going to be able to hit the ground running. I had a question, and it was so interesting. Yes, last year when I was out canvassing, going door to door, a lady, I stopped and delivered a manifesto, an invitation to my next meeting, and she looked at me and she said, Rolston, she said, I got a call from an old friend, and she said, oh, how's everything going? How's the politics? Who are you voting for up in West Bay North? And she said, well, I'm not going to say directly who I'm voting for. She said, but I'm going to ask you a question. If I have to send someone to Washington, to London, to Brussels, am I going to send Rolston Anglin, Shekinah Bush, Jordan Rivers, or Jermaine Hurlston, Ebanks? She said, She said, does that answer your question? And so experience matters. The ability to not just say you love Cayman. We all love Cayman. I believe every candidate loves Cayman and cares. But can you translate that into performance on the job, in Parliament, being a parliamentarian? If you're chosen to be a minister in cabinet, can you perform at that level? And every voter in Cayman needs to bear that in mind when they go to the polls. They have to make the assumption that the person they're voting for could wind up a minister, and say to themselves, can this person deliver at that level? Would I hire them, for example, to be the CEO of a medium-sized company? You
and listen, we got $1 billion budget, Cayman, not no medium-sized company, by the way. These people don't know anything about budgeting, about forecasting, about any of this stuff. And we want them to run the country?
That's right. And that was the point. And that was the point that I was going to make. That if you can't honestly say you could hire someone as a managing director of a medium-sized company with say 100 or so employees, then how can you then say that person can run a country and be a part of running the country? And so, you know, I put my resume and I put my record up against anyone. I am here to serve. I believe in serving, and that's how, by in dedicated service, that is how you can then be a true representative for our beloved country and our beloved Cayman Islands. So, you know, this is where,
you know, sometimes I try not to get into personal arguments with people, but, you know, they will say things that make me question how people even understand how this country works and how things are done. And I think the truth of the matter is, Rolston, we have lowered the bar so much, and we've let people in with no high school education. They haven't even completed high school in some instances, all this kind of stuff, that anybody feels like they can do it. And I hate to say, but that has been done to our detriment as a country. And so we need to change it. You know, we're talking about, this is the most critical election. If we really want to put people in there who know what they're doing and who are qualified to get the job done, we have got to change our mindset about who should actually be running this country. There's a lot of people running for political office who are simply nowhere near qualified. It doesn't mean that they're not good people. It doesn't mean that they're not nice people. It means that this should be a professional job. And so every Tom, Dick, and Harry that come running to try to run for office simply can't just jump in there and do the job.
Sandra.
And as Rolston rightfully said, anybody could be a minister, a premier. I mean, not for nothing. But we have a woman as premier right now who's gotten 300 votes, and that's it. I mean, how does that even make sense? If we had a national election, she would not be in charge of this country. Can't even get education. You don't have to say nothing about that, Rolston, but I'm just saying, this is my opinion. She can't even get education right, and yet she's premier of this country. By the way, I had a dream about her last night. I'm just remembering that. That's so funny. Anywho, you know,
well, certainly, I mean, Sandra, you know, again, that is yet another area that you've seen in the manifesto. You've heard me talk about bringing back the national after school program, ensuring that we close that latchkey gap, as they call it in the US, where 3 to 6 p.m. we try to ensure that we keep our children in a safe, positive environment. Those are the next dollars that we have to ensure that we spend on education. I think I see a comment here where we're talking about summer school.
After school,
and again, that's in my manifesto, because here's the bottom line, and this is simple. There can be no parent that can have any doubt about this as a policy position. If in July your child is performing below where they should be, you're then going to have a gap where they're not in school for 8 to 10 weeks. How can they then be up to par by September? So the next September, they're going to start even further behind, because there's another layer in their expectations in education. So that's why I'm proposing we have to spend monies on a summer school program. And let me make sure, because a lot of Caymanians, this is an interjection of another country's system, but I think it's one that won't disrupt our system and will want to help our children. So what do I mean by that? A lot of people in the British system don't think about summer school because it's very much an American school type of concept. But let's think about and break it down for what it is. If a child is not operating at the level, if they're not performing at the level that they should at the end of the last term, you give them refresh, you give them catch up. Not for the entire summer, because the child needs a break. And so you give them an intense catch up period, typically for 4 weeks, so that you hopefully then get that child ready for September when they're going to come back into school. So critically important. But Sandra, one of the other things that I don't talk about a lot, and people haven't heard me talk about, and we chatted about it very quickly at the very end of my last appearance here, which is conservation. And so there's a lot of issues that are just out there that you can that everyone knows about, right? The very obvious one starts with the dump. And so we know the next government has to decide, are we going to promote a Rolls-Royce program that is waste to energy, which is extremely expensive? And let me make sure that people understand this. Because what waste energy is sold as is, it's going to produce electricity, it's going to bring down your CUC bill. That is an absolute, unadulterated lie. The amount of waste that we produce in this country, when converted into electricity, on the average person's bill, would only contribute a fraction of a cent. So let's just say your bill is $500 a month. It's basically going to save you less than $5. So should we have should we sign this country up to a $1 to $2 billion cost program over a 25 or 50-year period of time for those sort of savings? I think the next government has got to take a hard, holistic look at waste management and implement a true national recycling program, implement a food and organic waste program, because that's what produces a lot of the stench in a dump. It's actually organic matter breaking down. That is food and trees. And so if you take those out, which can then produce a high quality soil additive. So take those out of the stream, ban them from coming into the landfill, ban glass, aluminum, plastics, and cardboard from coming into the landfill. Ensure that we're processing white goods. That is when your fridge goes out, when your microwave goes out. Ensure that we have a proper facility for dismantling, taking all the freon and oil out of cars, then crushing them. If we take a strategic approach to this, Sandra, what is left in terms of dealing with on a daily basis goes down dramatically. In fact, the estimate is that the volume going into the landfill, or any landfill at that point, would fall by around 80 to 85%. Now, if you have a properly lined landfill, you don't have all of that stuff going in that's now going to be leaching and catching fire and all of this sort of nonsense that we've dealt with for decades. So we either have to have a government that is going to be willing to put in the hard work and produce a comprehensive waste management system, or one who's going to say, you know what, let's trick the public and say, we're going to have waste to energy and we're going to produce all of this energy. And therefore, that justifies us spending approximately $25 million a year just to fund a very, very expensive approach to waste management. The fact of the matter is, you look at places where waste to energy actually is implemented. It's in big countries like the US, where even small counties can do it, but they truck waste in from neighboring counties and burn their waste, because that's what they need to do to up their volumes and justify the amount of capital that you have to spend on a waste to energy plant. But if we go beyond that, Sandra, one of the things that you'll see on page 18 and 19 of and 20 of my manifesto is we talk about how I think we strategically deal with our national resources, how we conserve our natural resources for future generations. We need to engage with the Department of Environment and get a true baseline study of our reefs and our fisheries. Using that data is how we then should be talking about what take limits are and what size of species should be allowed to be taken. Because we can't sit around and just assume that we're going to have parrotfish and grunts and snappers from now until the end of time. We've seen how successful our lobster and conch take limits have been over the years, right? And so you got to make those decisions today to preserve those resources and those beautiful species that bring so many tourists, and we make hundreds of millions of dollars off of, ensure that they're existing in 10 to 15 and 25 years. But beyond that, Sandra, one of the points that I raised, but it was hurried at the very end, and so quite a few people actually, called me after the last show and said, Rolston, can you explain a lot more when you started talking about the air separation unit proposal and how that is critically important to Cayman? Sandra, both of us are old enough to have lived through 3 events I'm going to bring up that we never thought we would have ever seen. We never thought we would have seen terrorists fly a plane into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. We never thought we would have seen a hurricane that would decimate Cayman to the point where people would be out of electricity for in excess of 12 weeks in some instances, when we finally got people fully hooked up. And we never thought we would have seen a global pandemic. What do all of them have in common? They put Cayman at huge risk for anything we have to import. We saw during the pandemic where the US president took a decision around what items were going to be allowed to leave the United States. And so a number of hospitals and medical systems in the US were under huge pressure to ensure they had medical gases. A topic, Sandra, that's not very sexy. 99% of us don't think about it because it doesn't impact us directly, or we don't have a loved one who's impacted directly. It's how important medical gases are in Cayman. Sandra, ask Shamari, call up the CEO of the HSA, call just about any health clinic, and ask the owner, what would happen if we ran out of medical gases, and what would happen to healthcare, and how we're able to ensure we can continue to provide medical care to our population. We import all of our medical gas. Yet another item, Sandra, that we're importing. We're wholly dependent on the imports. So what my proposal is that you would help solve 2 problems. Right now, the CUC stacks emit dangerous gases such as carbon dioxide. We all know that that's a greenhouse gas that's contributing to global warming. There is technology, and this isn't no fly-by-night stuff. This is stuff that's in operation, and you can visit plant after plant after plant in the US, Canada, Europe, and other countries, where they extract CO2 as one of the base gases and then produce high-quality medical gases such as oxygen, etc. And so my thought process is simple. Can we at least start to become independent in Cayman around some of the crucial things that we have to import? And so if we're able to then have a program where a properly spec'd air separation unit program is implemented, where we can produce our medical gases on island and not being dependent on them having to be imported, I think that's a huge net benefit for our country and for our community. Tied to that, I've spoken to persons in the private sector, because obviously you got to get data before you come up with these proposals. And so the one thing, there's one small barrier, and that is, again, plant size. Again, our size in Cayman is a limiting and inhibiting factor to a lot of the things we would want to do. And so they don't make a lot of very small units. And so a properly spec'd unit would actually produce more gas than we actually need at present in Cayman. And so whilst you can store quite a bit of it in ISO tanks, there's only so much storage that you want to actually have as well, because you can't just invest that capital in hugely expensive tanks and just keep it sitting there, and then you just keep producing more and more and more. And so there's already people who have looked at the market and realized that we have neighboring countries who also have similar issues and don't have the capital to produce, to purchase and have air separation units and become independent themselves. So it could actually become a net export for the Cayman Islands and ensure that our medical complexes are not compromised, and irrespective of what happens outside of Cayman, we can continue. So why did I put it in conservation and not healthcare? Well, the truth is, Sandra, being able to take the majority of the CO2 that's coming out of the CUC stacks is a huge, huge positive for our environment and the global environment. And so, Sandra, I think that is one of those that's, and again, for anyone who wants to see it, the summary is on page 20 and 21 of the manifesto. Take a look, take a read, give me the feedback, because again, we can't continue to do the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. And so that's a key part of how I see us, as small as we are in the Cayman Islands, playing a real role on the global stage. And perhaps other small Caribbean countries would then look on and say, you know what, perhaps we need to do the same thing and not continue to be dependent on importing our medical gases.
All right. Definitely a lot to think about. We do have a person who's asking the question, aisle 2025, must have missed when you addressed this before, asking essentially, has Rolston said what ministry he wants? You know, assuming you get a ministry, because it will certainly depend on how things come together, because you are running as an independent candidate. So,
and Sandra, let's repeat this point, because repeating bears emphasis. I don't see, and I'm sure that all of the current parties internally have acknowledged and realized they're not going to get 10 seats. You need to have at least 10 seats to secure a majority and form a government. And so, knowing that, I feel very confident that I'm going to be in a good position to be able to use my manifesto and negotiate to be with whoever forms the government. This is the perfect place for me to say, Sandra, that I have no side deals, no backdoor deals. I've not agreed with any party around who I'm going to form a government with. I have gotten calls from every party, including supporters of parties who have said to me, Rolston, if you're elected, would you work with us? And my point has been very simple. I'm not engaging in those discussions until the people have selected their 19 representatives. I think it's wholeheartedly irresponsible and presumptuous, Sandra, of me to be going into those sort of discussions before the election. Let's get to April 30th. At that point, I think anyone that's watched the show, Sandra, and watched this journey that started on December 20th should be very, very confident and clear that I am running a clean, good campaign that has built up not just local momentum. Sandra, at the launch, which we didn't even get to touch on, which you were there. We're there for part of the evening. A very, very successful launch rally to the campaign. I can say that we had approximately 300 people, and I'm an independent. The party people in West Bay have only managed to get 100 people at their largest meeting, and that wasn't in West Bay North. You can figure out which are the constituents that would be that have had party meetings thus far, which is only the national party that has had one. So I feel very good about the public's reaction to my campaign and therefore my candidacy. Of that, we estimate around 50 people were out of district. So 50 people came from other districts. Forget about West Bay North. They didn't even come from West Bay just to come. I met some people there from East End, North Side. I met a couple. Sandra, I was so surprised, so pleasantly surprised. After the meeting, I'm walking around meeting and greeting people, and there was this couple who had pulled up with their SUV. They brought their own chairs. Their thing was they didn't want to take seats from people in the constituency, so they bought their own chairs, and they come all the way from Savannah because they'd heard me on the show, they'd gotten a copy of the manifesto electronically, and they support the manifesto, and they were just there to encourage me on this journey. So Sandra, those ideals, I'm not in bed with any party. The public is going to put whoever they see fit in office. It's that simple. But Sandra, I got to tell you now, as you said a little earlier, where you found on the was it C3andMe? What's the DNA?
23andMe. Yeah.
23andMe, C3. Floyd had slipped. 23andMe. So I did get a couple of calls from some of my cousins who saw the ad poster for this morning's show with myself and my cousin Julia Hunter on it. And they wrote me, they said, "What? Has there been a switch?" I said, "Oh no, not another rumor." And so Sandra, let me make sure that those who are listening who might not catch on to the joke that we were sharing, when Sandra sent out the promotion for today's show, it just so happened that Julia and I were supposed to be coming on, and obviously the show you've done this. I've been on. Yes. I've been on a flyer with Alric. I've been on a flyer with
Yeah. So, I mean,
but of course,
people should know how it's,
Yeah, but of course, when people saw the flyer, they made this big assumption. They're like, "Oh goodness, has there been a big switch?" And no, there's been no big switch. That's just a promotion for who was coming on the show today. But Sandra, I have to say that with less than 5 weeks to go for Caymanians to go to the polls, I just want to encourage every Caymanian as you go to vote. Assume that person that you're going to vote for could be a minister, and look yourself in the mirror and be completely honest. Can they operate at that level? Because if you're a minister, you're going to naturally have to go internationally and represent the country. Whether you're a minister of youth, you have to go to Global Youth Symposium. If you're a minister of sport, you got to go to sports global symposiums. You have to travel and represent your country once you're a minister. The elections have consequences. We saw how the last 4 years unfolded. You need experienced, credible leaders. Experience over experiment, Sandra. That ought to be the mantra for us as we go to the polls. And as you said quite rightly, this isn't about whether people are nice people or not. Because I get along, I don't know of any candidate that I don't get along with. I mean, if they have an issue with me, that's their problem, really. That's how I look at it. I don't hold malice in my heart for any of the candidates across all the districts. But I take the running of our country very seriously. And we have seen that Cayman needs to get back on track with immigration, healthcare, education, all of these intertwined and interconnected topics that are critically important for us going forward. But I thought, Sandra, that today I would talk about conservation and talk about how we could actually be innovative in Cayman and ensure that we solve two problems. We solve an environmental one, and we then also couple it with ensuring that we have a product that we can consume on island. I want to touch lastly, Sandra, on the Barker's plan, which is on page 19 of the manifesto. And so one of the persons who's running against me in West Bay North made a very bold pronouncement. I'm going to be waiting eagerly to see if this comes back up tonight at the chamber forum, because I listened really at the Radio Cayman debate more than anything else, and I didn't challenge a lot of positions, and I just listened to what the young candidates had to say. But he made the bold pronouncement that my plan of purchasing Barker's beachland, because the government owns none at present, that there was a much simpler approach. That government only needs to go and compulsorily acquire. So Sandra, let's break this down.
People understand how compulsory acquisition works. Because I mean, even the current government, let me be clear, even the current UPM government is trying to compulsory acquire the waterfront property, and that will not done without legal challenges. And I bet you they're not going to win. You see, this is what I'm talking about when you take inexperienced people who do not understand law. They don't understand some very important principles. When you get in there as a government, there's certain things that you cannot do.
Yeah, so
and the concept of using compulsory acquisition, misusing it just to grab a piece of property that you think the government should own for whatever reason, that's not what compulsory acquisition is meant to be about. And you will get yourself in legal trouble.
Right.
It's shocking the things that people don't understand, and yet they have these ideas. And to the average person, this is why I keep challenging people. Don't be fooled just because someone says something. If they're not willing to explain it to you, do you guys know what the law says about compulsory acquisition and under what circumstances can it be applied?
That's right.
Don't be fooled just because someone's a good talker.
Yep. So this young man,
Marcus Cumber in the house. Good morning, Marcus. I don't think I've ever seen Marcus on a show before. Good to see you, Marcus.
Hey, good
I know
job,
he
buddy.
He watches. He probably just doesn't comment very often.
Yeah, and so the young man, Jeremy Banks, made this bold point that compulsory acquisition would be the solution. I looked at both of the other candidates, and they were there nodding their heads, and I just shook my head internally and didn't even say anything, because I just had to say to myself, good grief, is this what we've come to in terms of people who are putting themselves up for candidates and saying this stuff publicly, not privately in someone's home and trying to trick them into voting for them, but publicly. If the government tries to compulsorily acquire Barkers, three things are going to automatically happen. The owners are going to challenge it. It's going to go to court. Automatically, KCs are going to get involved, because you're going to have to get the very best lawyers to argue these cases. That means the government is going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees, if not millions, on legal fees to try and justify its position. What would a normal court typically decide? That the government does not have the right to willy-nilly, because they think a few constituents would be happy if we grab this piece of land from a private citizen.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And so what would wind up happening is you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees, and the courts more than likely will then say to you, oh, by the way, if you do want to acquire this, and if they are still willing, you then have to negotiate and buy it at fair market value. That's my position. You go to the private sector and you negotiate, and you make it clear that this is an area that you're not going to be minded, because here's one thing government can do. Government can say to its central planning authority, we are not minded to have development in certain areas. And so if people know they can't develop the land, they're more than likely going to be willing to enter good faith negotiations and sell it to the government, and then the government can protect the land. It's plain and simple, Sandra. No fancy footwork, no frills, no big pronouncements. That's my plan as to how we preserve Barkers, because I do believe, I've called it the last frontier. I think Barkers is the last frontier of what is a pristine Cayman looks like, and that ought to be preserved for future generations. At that point, when we go beyond the 104 acres that are currently owned by the government, we can then truly develop a true Barkers National Park. That is the key. That is the key for how we're going to move forward and ensure that we conserve Barkers. That's my Barkers plan. No fancy footwork. I think it's practical. I think it, and how would we use how would we use the funding? Or how would we fund it? Sorry. Right now, we do have in excess of $40 million in the Environmental Protection Fund. My view on that.
Are you sure that's still there? Because they've been siphoning from that, honey child.
Okay, so let me. Okay, so good point, Sandra. So internal workings now, a little boring, but let me make sure we're very clear. So good question, a good comment. How our law actually works is that those funds, there is an EPF, so it is there. The issue is government uses that balance to be able to pass the test of our debt service ratio. And so that's why a lot of governments has not touched it, because they've been on a real spendthrift when it comes to our general revenue and our general reserve fund, and just spending that wantonly, knowing that they have a backup that sits there in the EPF to allow us to continue to be compliant with the public management and finance law. And so the next government have to be financially prudent. And therefore, yes, you can use it, Sandra, but you're only going to be able to use it if you understand that you have to be fiscally responsible. And anyone that knows my background knows that is something that I have performed extremely well with during my last tenure, and was a key part of trying to ensure that all governments that I had any part in, and even when I was in the opposition, trying to hold the then government to account to be fiscally responsible. The last question that was asked, Sandra, that I didn't answer directly, which was someone asked what ministry that I would quote unquote want. Sandra, you have to be a good team player, and you have to be humble, and you have to be a good, humble servant for the people of this country. I am not putting my eye on any particular ministry until we see who gets elected, and then how I best fit in, what my strengths would be coming to the table. And so I don't want to go out there and start making proclamations around what I would want to do. I want to ensure that what is going to happen come May 7th, when a government is sworn in, is that the best possible government, the strongest possible government, is put together for this country. That's how we're going to improve a lot of Cayman and Caymanians. So, Sandra, I know we have to wrap up, but it's been a good show as usual.
And again, I want to say that this is why experience matters, because there's so many things that people think they know about how government works and they don't have a clue. And then what happens when they get in there and they start making these amateur mistakes and they start pushing for things that aren't even possible, or they push for something, next thing you know, the government is getting sued or the government's in legal trouble, or, Caymanians, please, I mean, for the sake of turning this good ship around, I am wholeheartedly asking people to listen very, very carefully to the candidates, to see who is coming with workable solutions. It's one thing to have a solution that is a pie in the sky solution and it sounds good on the face of it, but if it's something that cannot work and cannot get us where we need to go, what sense does that even make? This is why candidates have got to educate themselves. One person makes the following observation, speaking about the current education minister, 2 terms of education, and she hasn't done 1/4 of what Rolston did in 1 term. Miss Cora says one of the many things Rolston can do is speak well. Well, I mean, again, Miss Cora, I'm saying get past the speaking well and listen to the substance of what people are saying. We are too easily fooled by people who speak well. Chris Saunders also speaks well. But I'm about to tell you, a lot of what he said about pensions, about liabilities, and all this kind of stuff, Rolston can probably tell you as a CPA, it don't even make any sense if you really understood. But because we're not CPAs, we're not experts in this area, he throws out all kind of nonsense, hoping that something will stick in your brain that, oh, wow, well, he sounds intelligent, so therefore let's elect him. No. And those people have got to be in a position to break it down for the average person to understand. Rolston comes on here.
Sort of like reverse mortgages, where he suggests there's a free lunch. There's no free lunch, Sandra, as we know. Exactly. There is no free lunch. If it was that simple, then every country would use it and everybody would be happy and gleeful. But Sandra, to that point, the last point you made, I am encouraging all of your listeners to tune in this evening to the Chamber of Commerce Forum, where I and the other 3 candidates from West Bay North are going to be on. And I want to say one thing, because I've watched some of these forums, Sandra. These forums seem to now be a shop where people memorize a bunch of answers and then come and regurgitate them. Or, even worse, show up with big binders and then flip and find, here's what my notes say. These forums, in my mind, are supposed to be about putting you on the spot for you to think critically and prove your mettle that you actually are ready for the national stage. That is, you are ready to be in our House of Parliament. And so I'm going to be there tonight, and I'm going to be just as I am right now. There's no notes. I'm going to be talking from my experience, talking about real, credible solutions. So I invite and hope people from West Bay North in particular, but all of West Bay and Cayman will tune in and listen to those debates.
One caller, Denny, good morning. Somebody said, please give Rolston a kaboom. Morning, Denny. How you doing?
Morning, not bad.
Happy Friday.
Thank you. Roy, you and I don't agree on everything, but that has never stopped us from dialoguing over the many years about things that are important to the community. But in my conversations with you, I have never once felt, well, Rolston doesn't actually understand what's going on. You understand how government operates. What we need is that we need some things to be done differently going forward. I'm sure you have the capacity to reason through these issues. Whether you'll have an opportunity to be a part of a government that will make important changes to set us on a new course, I can't really say, but things seem to be going good for you right now. I want to thank you personally for having the courage to come on the air and dialogue with the public, have meaningful dialogue about issues. One of the things that I dislike most in when I interact with some people, I get the question, who do you support? The more appropriate question is, which ideas do you support? Not about the village chief. It's about the policies that are set by individuals. And so I think that as a country, we benefit from having the public be able to listen to people such as yourself, reason through the steps of decision making. And we grow as a community, because if we leave the public behind, the public that we need their support to get things done, they're not going to be able to understand why those things need to be done. And so I just want to thank you for having the opportunity, for having the courage to come on and be involved in these detailed discussions.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Danny.
All right.
And Sandra, I know you have to wrap up, Sandra, but I can tell the world, Danny Ward has pinned me down sometimes, and I have to struggle to get away from him, because we know when Danny gets when Danny gets on a point, Danny wants to get into that point, and he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
We will debate points back and forth, but it's always a meaningful debate. I understand where he's coming from. He understands where I'm coming from. And the truth is, we both try to grow from those conversations. What I can promise the public is, one of the reasons is that I will ensure that, God's willing, come April 30th, I feel good, and that the people of West Bay North are going to send me to the Parliament to represent them. In my one term as minister, I set a then record for the most public appearances. And I don't have a number to quantify that. I can just tell you, think back of when there was only 2 really popular talk shows, and I made a commitment that I went on more than once per month. The big reason for part of my success as minister, getting so much done, Sandra, is that I came to the public, explained the policy positions of what we were doing and why. And so that then made the public understand, okay, they might have agreed with every policy position, but at least they understood what we were trying to achieve. And therefore, it made it so much easier to implement it and bring PTAs and parents on board, and everyone then worked collaboratively with our children at the center. Because everything we're doing in education, in immigration, in healthcare, in environment, think about it, Sandra, employment, everything that the next government is going to do must be about the future, the next generation, so that we secure their future and they have a better Cayman than we had That's the way, that's what we should be doing as adults, leaving these islands in better shape than we found them.
All right, caller, quick question or comment, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Rolston. Morning, Sunny.
Morning, dear.
Came on. I agree with Mr. Rolston with mostly everything he said on track. But my thing is that it just can't be everybody that's already there that knows. He've learned over the years, he studied because he cared about his islands, and he have gotten the knowledge, and he got a wealth of knowledge, which is what we need. But we also need others to come in also, or if they don't get elected, for him not to just stop there, but to educate them. Those that are really interested in the islands, educate them, even though they might not be elected, that they will be suited for the jobs. They will have knowledge.
Let me ask you a question. Is that Rolston's job or is that their job? They should be educating themselves.
No, I know, but also for him, because you could go and look stuff, Sandra, I do sometimes, but what Mr. Rolston is telling me now, some of this stuff comes from experience, and you don't just find it, you'll Google it or you'll whatever, but him being in there, experience is truly essential in life. So I'm just saying it's not only about their job or his job, it's about that he, like he said, he cares. We want to extend this beyond just not him, the knowledge, right? So he could offer us, because he will get elected, he can offer, listen, if you're interested, I have classes on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, come out, learn about your island. Not only those that looking to be elected, like people like ourselves, that we could learn also, that we could get involved in debates, and we could say no, and then we could choose wisely also when the next election comes up. Anything can happen that you need hands-on, emergencies like COVID. And if people are prepared, or something happened to, our selected MPs, somebody could jump in and help. We got to look just beyond that we're going to last the 4 years or the whatever things happen, and especially in these last days. So I would like for that, to see that, and for some to come in and they're taught. And Mr. Rolston have learned, over the years, I've listened, and he's so constructive now, even more than many years ago. I'm sure he's learned lessons that have made him passive and the person he is today. So when you get passive and you love people, you really want to help them on their journey. And you put all things aside for your country, your islands, because at the end of the day, we're going to sink if we just there fighting. No, Lord, like he said, he have to be elected first to decide where he wants. All of that is exactly what you're looking for, in a candidate, So give him a caboose. Wonderful show.
Thank you,
Have a good weekend, all, and God bless.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
I think we live in a world where, and I kind of take her point, but I think we also live in a world where people need to learn. There is a lot of information there. So when I hear people taking certain position papers, when they sit down and listen to a candidate on pensions, and yet, when I reach out to this pension expert, because I'm not an expert on a lot of things, right? I'm an expert in digging up for information. So I reach out to the people who are the experts. I'm like, this position that this candidate is taking, is this right? And then they refer me to the documents, like the Mercer report. They say, Sandy, we've already done a report dating back to March of 2007. Report and review of the Cayman Islands National Pensions Law. Go and have a read of that. We live in a world now where we have more access to information than ever before. It is easier to get information. Documents are published online. Laws are published online. And yet I would argue that our people are more ignorant than they have ever been, because people are lazy. They're complacent. They don't want to do the hard work. They want Rolston to tell them everything. I mean, Rolston might be willing to do that, but I'm telling you, that's not his job. If we elect him as an MP, it's not his job to turn around and tell other people who are running okay, well, next election, this is what you need to do to get ready for the next election. They have to take it upon themselves to learn. And there are things that they can do. There are forums that they can go to. There are discussions that they can have. There are think tank groups. So every single one of you who are in these idle, and when I say idle, I do mean idle WhatsApp groups where all they talk is pure foolishness and nonsense all day. The time that you waste in those engaging Sherry Ann and this one and that one, stop wasting your time and take that same time and educate yourself. When I hear candidates talking about the price of food and they think that we can solve the price of food in this country by setting up a government grocery store, that means that they've never read anything internationally or regionally as to why certain food items are increasing in cost. And that troubles me because we don't live in a bubble.
And Sandra, whilst I am never going to say that to be an MP, that there's this textbook definition, what I am going to say boldly, I got elected at 28 years old. And when I hear younger candidates now using that door-to-door up in West Bay North who have not been to college, so you're not willing to invest in yourself to make yourself knowledgeable, because the more formal education you get, the more knowledgeable and your capacity to learn and bring things the way I do increases exponentially. And so, yes, I got elected when I was young, but I was a CPA. I had been and worked and lived in Columbus, Ohio, and graduated from university. Had gone and lived and worked in New York. To your point, Sandra, I was giving myself that life experience. And so candidates, in my opinion, need to be looking in 2025, the public need to be looking at people and saying, are these people who have taken the time to invest in themselves at the highest level before they then want the public to invest their vote in them? And so to that caller's point, I will tell you, on my committee right now, there are 4 young people. There are 4 young people, all of whom have either completed their university or are on their road to completing university. I'm interested in young people who are interested in improving themselves first before they start thinking about politics. It's like the pilot. The pilot always tells you, put on the mask of the child first, then put yours on.
No, put yours on first and then help the child.
Put yours on. Sorry, I said it the wrong way. Oh, you see? There you go, Freud, and then slip. Yes, you got to put yours on, and therefore you need to invest in yourselves, right? You need to be a person that's going to be a lifelong learner, to your point. It's not my job to make you a lifelong learner. Now, will I impart knowledge to people who I see have been
truly
have that ambition and that drive and got that authentic drive? More than happy to. More than happy to, Sandra.
Yeah.
And to the caller's
point.
All right,
Rolston. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you. And I want everyone to have a wonderful weekend. Tune into the Chamber debate. I'll be on next week again, but my next campaign rally is next Saturday, April the 5th. It's going to be at the Teacher Halal Park, and we're looking for a great turnout because it's going to be some awesome endorsements, and I'm going to be bringing out 2 new policy positions, Sandra. Just a small tease. 2 new policy positions that have come about by reader feedback of the manifesto.
Thank you very much. Very, very much. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
All right, you too. All right, we've got Miss Julie Hunter, who is up next. Miss Julie, we didn't see you until 9:17 in this studio, so I'm not sure where you were in the cyber world, unfortunately, because I know you were supposed to come on earlier, but welcome. And nonetheless, still over 560 people on the live stream, so we will continue the discussion. So Ms. Julie Hunter is going to be talking to us today about fiscal management. As many of you know, her a good part of her career experience is in the world of banking and finance. And so one of the issues that we continually have in this country is the hemorrhaging of money. Natasha, your comment is noted. Natasha says this generation want cliff notes on the topics, and cliff notes simply do not work. You've got to have the gumption to go away and do the deep dives, read the reports, and really read up on the issues. So, Ms. Julie, let's talk a little bit now about the necessity for fiscal and financial responsibility especially as a government. You know, one of the things I found interesting when we spoke to you on Sundays, you talked about from a personal and banking position, you were oftentimes counseling, you know, Caymanians about how they needed to put their finances in order to be able to qualify for what for most of us is going to be the biggest purchase and capital investment in ourselves and in our lives and our family lives, which is a household home. And so a lot of people, you mentioned through your experience, were not qualifying for those because they didn't understand basic money management. And unfortunately, they had a lot of debt. So their debt ratio was high. Now, I want you to transfer that conversation when we think about the government and government spending habits. So dive right in. Miss Julie Hunter, good morning to you, my dear, and welcome. By the way, Miss Lavonna says you're such a beautiful woman.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiman. Good morning. And thank you, Lavonna. And thank you, Sandra, for having me. Yes, I must say that I really enjoyed our segment on Sunday. It wasn't only because I enjoy making banana bread, and that's one of my favorite places to be is in the kitchen, but we had such an awesome conversation. And it just you know, kind of morphed into, you know, so many things.
Oh, somebody's adjusting your camera for you.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was the camera adjusting itself, but
is it better now? Is it okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so it morphed into a lot of things, and one of the things I found interesting about our conversation, it went in the direction of me having to do a lot of counseling, you know, in my time as a loan officer. And, you know, that's one of the things that I would really like to do again when I'm elected, because I see that is so important in our everyday lives. You know, so many, especially young people, you know, get caught up. And I know you would probably can testify to this. I don't know what your experience was when you went to Tampa and went to university, but a lot of students get into a lot of credit card debt, you know, when they get into college, you know, for whatever reason. You know, this card is thrown at them, and it's just like so easy to apply for a card and get it. You know, then you end up with 5, 6 cards. You know, you don't know what to do with all this debt. Then you got your student debt, and then you're coming back with all of that, and then you want a car as soon as you come back, so that compounds it. So it you know, the cycle keeps going. But I find that if we would educate our children and our young people even at an early age, then it would be so much easier on them to make the kind of decisions that they need to make. I mean, I go back to my mother, Sandra, you know, financial management and money management. People like them didn't have all the technology that we have today. But I mean, there was nobody that was a better money manager than my mother. I mean, long before I went to the bank, I had that innately built into me because, you know, as a worker in a condo, I mean, you know the kind of money that they make. And for me to be able to see my own mother thrive, be able to save, and the principles that she had in her life, you know, I mean, my mother was a person that, you know, if she would set aside some money every single time she got paid. That money, it had to be life or death for her to use that money once that was put in her savings account. She always had an account that she can use, an account that she saved, and you don't ever touch that savings account unless it was something that she was planning for in the future. So those kind of principles, you know, has helped to build me as well, because I saw that. Maybe she had maybe one loan in her entire life, but my mother operated on the principle that you save for what you got, for what you want. Whether it's a vacation, whether it's to go away by her grandchildren, like she did all the time, spoil them when she went to Miami, stuff like that. Or whether it was furniture, new furniture, or whether it was the add-on piece on the house, all that was saved for. You know, so as a government, coming back to them, since I know that's kind of what you want to talk about, I was going to talk a little bit about financial literacy and, you know, try to help people understand that a little bit better, but I can always do that another time. You know, but as a government, if we would just operate
clearly, I mean, I just want to say that our government obviously needs financial literacy too.
Yes.
I mean, listen.
Sandra, those basic principles would be so good for for them to learn if they operated, you know, with those financial literacy principles. I mean, the importance of budgeting, the importance of investing properly, the importance of not spending what you don't have, you know, the importance of fiscal responsibility and transparency, and letting people know what you're doing with their money, you know, things like that. So, you know, those are important things that we seem to have missed with the government.
Yes.
I mean, I've never seen it out of the spending out of control as I see it now. I mean, one of the things that grabbed my attention just the other day was the Compass article that, you know, where they get all this money, and then each month, and then they don't have to account for it. They don't have to say how they spend it. They just get it. You know, so I don't know. And then, you know, they're saying, you know, where are we going to get all this money from for all these grandiose things that you all want to do? I mean, I know that there's a point to that, but then if you invest properly, if you manage your money properly, if you look at the things that are most important for you to do as a country, then you will get it. At least you mightn't get it right all the time, but you'll get it right some of the time. But now, right now, we're not really getting it right hardly at all. So I think that the fiscal responsibility and transparency, I was listening a bit to Raleigh earlier when he said, you know, one of the things that he pride himself in is that when he was in government before, he always came on and let people know what he was doing, and to be transparent, to be open, and to, you know, that is so important. And you know, I think that if we as a government would adopt that, then we would see so even before we do things, how our constituents feel about the way we're spending, how they feel. You know, a lot of times you have this built up emotions on how they're operating, and you can't really say anything. It comes out after the fact. So that's one of the things that I want to do when I am elected. I want to have at least quarterly meetings. I want to have quarterly with my constituents and let them know what we're planning, what policies we're working on, how far we've reached, you know, and let them know. And then at the same time, I'm getting their feedback on, you know, Miss Julie, you know, you're concentrating on completely the wrong things here. We put you in for to help us with cost of living, and you're out here doing some. That's just an example. But you engage, you keep engaged with your people. I was talking to a gentleman today, and he was talking about an MP that he helped to get elected, and he was completely, you know, like tearing the person down and saying, well, one of the reasons that I am not going to support her this time is because after she got in, she did not come back to her people. You know, we never heard from her again. She never came and asked us for input. So I think it's so important that you as an MP let your people know what is happening and be transparent. You know, I know you can't bring notes out of important meetings like that, but you can at least let them know what positions you're taking and where you're getting with things, you know? So Sandra, I don't know exactly how to tell you that we're going to fix that, but I do know it's necessary for our government to realize that being transparent is one of the things that we're sorely lacking. And when I think of the fact that we have spent and owe so much money because of lack of transparency, because of not letting people know this is what was happening, you know, and then we find out after the fact, you know, it just boggles my mind that we can be representatives and not feel that we have an obligation to the people that elected us. How does that work?
Yeah. In terms of fiscal responsibility as it relates to government, you mentioned some of the recent spending, which we reported on here. For example, we saw the government allocate, rounded up to $1 million for local church, who's already received a sizable amount. What are your thoughts on this? Because, you know, the current administration and the current government seems to be hemorrhaging money. And I think that that's a problem because, number one, unfortunately, we don't have unlimited money. Money doesn't grow on trees. And so
we don't have unlimited money. And Sandra, that goes right back to transparency. Again, if you have a building that's been sitting there for X amount of years, you know how long that building has been there. It has gone nowhere. So if you're going to use I'm not saying that we should not invest in our community. No, I would never say that. And we need hurricane shelters and we need those. But for at least 10 years that's been there. So come out and say, okay, this is how far we've gotten with this building. This is why this has not been able to be completed. It needs another 400,000. This is what we're going to do with the 400,000. Use the 400,000. Let us see where that has gone. Let us see that the building now has on the roof. It has this, it has that. It's getting there. And then you come back and say, okay, so we spent that 450,000. This is what we did. We had a little cost overrun. So, or whatever the reason they come and say they need more money, whatever the reason is. And then you say, okay, well, we now need another 500,000 to finish that building. And this is what we're going to do. The reason we need 500,000 more is because we decided that it's not going to be a hurricane shelter. So there's a lot more requirements that we need for that. So that's why this costs so much more money. Tell us why the 450,000 that you've allocated already has not been seemingly spent, or has it been spent, and what has been done? Because if it's spent, then it must be used inside the building, because I don't see anything different outside the building. You know, so that's again is where transparency comes in, and letting the people know what is happening, so that you don't have to be wondering about these things. You know, and then people would understand what you're doing and appreciate it more than just, like you say, hemorrhaging all this money. And sometimes we don't know if we're getting value for money. I find that when it's anything to do with a government project, you know, it always costs 10 times more than what the average person can build for or do for. I don't know why is that, or whether they don't have good money managers, or whether the processes is not run correctly. I don't know why, but it seems like everything with government cost more. I mean, I look at Island Primary and how much they were able to build their school for, and that is a prime example of how as a government we waste money. If they can build a school for 300 and odd students for $15 million, why are we spending $75 million to build a school for 200 students? Now that is beyond my comprehension. So that's all I'm saying. You know, keep us in the loop. Keep us aware of what's happening, and then we would have more sympathy, you know, and be more sympathetic in the spending. Right now, we are flabbergasted that the government spends a amount of money and what it spends it on. I mean, I mean, I can't beat up myself anymore.
So we have a question here. Oh, Isles 2025 says, tell Julie her feature in the kitchen was so good. So they enjoyed it. Prudence says to vote for Miss Julie. Denver says, I've had a bank account since the time I was 12 years old and I'm still broke.
Oh my. Denver needs to come and talk to me. He's my friend. He needs to come and talk to me then. I can tell him how to solve that.
Yeah. So it's not about just having a bank account. Obviously, there are good money management practices that we all have to implement in our lives. So
it's about budgeting, Sandra, budgeting. If you do not, first of all, sit down and look at your expenses, look at how much you're spending, look how much you can afford. The old people say, don't hang your hat no higher than you can reach it. That's a principle that if you live by that principle, you will never, ever go wrong, because you won't spend what you don't have. I see people come in all the time and they want a loan for vacation this year, a loan for vacation the next year. They want a credit card to go with the loan for the vacation. That is just not financially prudent. You know, if you can't afford a vacation, don't go on one, because then you have to spend the next year paying for that credit card, paying for that that loan. And then you're in the same boat again next year. So you're always continually in debt. You know, that's not a good principle to live by. You know, stay within your means. That's why it's so important to budget. Sit down and track your expenses, see where your expenses have gone, and look at it and say, how can I do it better? And always, to manage your money, it's always, you can always improve. You know, you might not start a student in the first instance, but you will get there if you practice good financial management. If you started and your budget is too high and you went over budget, then you know you have to cut back on something next month. If you ever want to get to that pattern where you can save, or if you're really serious about money managing, then you will at least say right up front, I am going to save 10% every month, and I'm only going to spend the other 90%. You know, and what that do, it do. And, you know, I'm going to go from there. That's one of the principles that, you know, I try to live by.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And that's the problem with our government. That's the problem. They spend what they don't have, and then they have to, you know, depend on all these work permit fees, and that's why we can never get anywhere with immigration, is because, you know, we feel that we have to have all this money from work permit. But if we would spend what we have and budget, then we wouldn't have to be borrowing all this money all the time and depending on the revenue from things like work permits, which we need to revamp. We need to revamp that, find other ways to make money, except, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question here for you, Miss Julie. Mary says, please tell Miss Julie that she did so well in the Radio Keyman debate. McKeeva was being misogynistic and rude as usual. The moderators really should have said something. How will you handle, I mean, you know, you're going up against an opponent who, I don't know if he ever had any manners, but if he did, he lost them a long time ago. But, you know, this is a tough game, Miss Julie, as you probably see already. Politics is not for the faint of heart. So the general question I would ask you is, how will you handle rude people, angry people who are in politics, misogynistic people, obnoxious people? How do you handle people like that, unfortunately, when you may have to work with them, their inner communities, their inner workplaces, and so on?
Sandra, I try to make live by the principle that, you know, if I don't want you to do it to me, I try not to do it to you. You know, so I try to live by that principle and be kind. Is not always every time you can be. Sometimes you just have to combat lies and combat, you know, and I've told you some of the things that I've had to combat just even since I started running for election. You know, some of the things just floored me, and I had to come out and say, well, you know, this absolutely is not true. This is a lie. You know, I've had to deal with it like that. But as far as tearing down people and being and dealing with rude people, I try to be an example. And because you do it to me, don't mean that I'm going to do it to you. You know, I get a lot of people telling me, you know, you should have been more hard. You know, I came out of the studio and people saying, you know, you should have confronted him. You should have, you know, said that when he said, you know, it's all lies. You should have reminded him that you were charged and you had a sentence. So how can you say it was all lies? But that's just not my character. Sometimes, you know, I just think, you know, you have to just at least show people who you are at heart and just have to shine through those things. If I have to combat blatant lies on my character, then I will, you know, and don't take it that I'm so weak that I can't say what I have to say. No, I will tell you when I have to tell you something, but I try not to be rude about it. And I try to be firm, but not rude. And rude people, you know, have their own place.
All right. So we have someone here who's saying that they wanted to meet with you. This is Mayor Star Nixon, said that when you're talking about transparency, you know, you had told her that you were going to meet with her and you haven't. So I don't know if you know this young lady and you remember promising her, but how are you keeping up with, I mean, there's a lot of promises on the campaign trail right now, trying to meet with people, trying to keep appointments. You know, she's saying that you obviously didn't keep the one with her. What's your schedule like now in terms of trying to juggle all of that? I know you obviously have appearances.
Sandra, I would say that it's extremely difficult to meet with everybody that you have a request from. Going into this, I'm finding that people are merciless and they think that you must drop everything and just deal with them right away. No, I cannot do that. I'm trying my endeavor best, but I think that people have to understand that I'm only one person and I've gotten a lot of requests. I don't remember Star Nixon at all. So I don't remember saying that. I don't remember that at all. I have met with several people. I have other appointments set up already that I'm continuing to meet with people. But what I would say, it is much easier for me to communicate with you on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp number is out there. It's on all of my media. So if I haven't met with you or if you want to meet with me, please WhatsApp me and I'll be happy to set up an appointment with you and meet with you at my office. That's what I'm about. I'm a public servant. I've done that all my life. So I'm not ever going to not keep my appointments. That's not who I am.
All right. I'll pass along the message so you can reach out to that person. Maybe there was just a little miscommunication there. Aisle 2025 says the government has to look to the businesses and countries that get it right and learn from them, follow their model, but tweak it so it works for us. Some good points there. Sandra says we have lots of backyard churches, I think over 500. I'm not sure what that has to do with for the issue, but anyway, all right. Yes, Mirstar, we understand it's not for you. We'll get her that message so she can follow up. Noelle in the comment section says vote for Julie and change needed. Jonathan says Denver and education is what exactly? How to game the system of institutionalized corruption for your own self-interest and political expediencies, how to sell your influence to the highest bidder like a prostitute, how to be a sociopathic predatory dictator whilst pretending that you represent anything close to the will of the electorate and broadcast with all of the genuine sincerity of a scam artist that you speak on behalf of your people. I think not.
Oh my, there was a lot there, Sandra. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay.
But sad to say, a lot of people feel that way because we have not had good representation, and people feel that a lot of our representatives have just been self-serving. And, it's been it for what they can get out of it instead of, being really taking care of the people that you were elected to serve and serving your country and putting country first, So that's the nature of what we're dealing with right now. That's why a lot of people are saying vote for change. It's not the experience. We've seen that experience has failed us.
All right. We have a comment here. Let me just screen grab this one. This is kind of lengthy, but I think worth a read. And by the way, some people seem to think that when you send it on WhatsApp, somebody said to me one time, oh, but didn't you read? I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I see the comments, but I'm not reading them with the intent of processing them. I'm reading them with intent of, or just screen grabbing it basically to share it with our listeners, because this is an open and, fully engaged conversation. So let me just grab this one, Miss Julie, and I see some other commenters here as well. And of course, we thank all of the candidates who are coming on this program and putting themselves to the task of having open and frank discussions with our candidates. So this one says, being hounded by collective responsibility, you can't leave caucus and or cabinet and speak to your personal opinions to anyone on your stance on different topics, no matter how sensitive or difficult the topic or issues may be, or if it doesn't align with the majority of your team/cabinet caucus. To do what Ms. Hunter is saying as a minister, one would have to resign from being a cabinet minister for that freedom. And that's why we saw that 4 people did resign so that they could speak on what was happening in the country. Collective responsibility, be it a cabinet minister or not, is something that that's not understood, it seems. Team player in this is key. Everyone must take the beating together and take the credit together as well, if you're truly a team. So this person's point, I should tell you, there's someone who is a minister. They have said that this concept of collective responsibility seems to be missed by a lot of people who are running for political office, because the things that happen in caucus and the things that happen in cabinet, you can't then go out there and sit down and discuss with the public like that. So their opinion is, once they get in there, they might actually understand how it works. So yeah, point taken. This is, I don't claim to understand it either. Although I'm reading my book on parliamentary. I am reading my book on the parliament and how it works. The one that I told you guys is about 500-600 pages. It's a lot of reading, folks. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, Ms. Hunter.
Good morning.
Morning, Jonathan.
I just would like to inquire with the author of what you have on the screen right now, and get y'all's take on this. The author of what is on the screen right now has basically written and elucidated one of the major issues with the system we have, which is this collective responsibility dictates that one's own moral and ethical compass, one's own need to speak truth is inhibited by the system which we have as it pertains to the highest level of decision-making processes in this country. And in my humble opinion, that makes this concept of a collective responsibility a negative and not a positive at its base. Now, beyond that, Ms. Hunter, I have a question for you, ma'am. If you give me the opportunity, I'd like to ask. I've had some discussions with a few others, a few of which who are potential candidates. And although I know it is very politically sensitive, what are your thoughts on the possibility of introducing a national discussion, Ms. Hunter, on one, allowing for and making positions of ministerial positions be positions which are voted upon by the electorate exclusively, to the, we the electorate choose who will be our ministers, and also evolve to the point where we are the ones, the electorate, are the ones who choose who will be and who will not be the premier. Ma'am, I understand that it is very politically sensitive, but in whatever way you can, I'd like to hear your thoughts on these questions, because we have seen over the last few administrations a dire need for some level of valid, sustainable democracy to make its way into our system. The negative consequences and the history have shown themselves to be what it is, and it is a clear and present danger, and it has to be addressed. Anyway, thank you, ladies, and I'll listen to your answer.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate
it. Thank you for the question. Yes, I can understand why our electorate would feel that way, because I too feel that way, that we have seen so much misconduct and so a blatant disregard for the office, I would say, in our elected representatives, that, you ought to be able to have a say in not only who you elect, but what areas you put them in. And also, I think that as representatives, if we are not willing to sign a serious code of conduct that has teeth and abide by that code of conduct, then I think that you as electorate should have the right to be able to put us out of that office. I'm sorry, I think gone are the days when you can just do anything and get in. In fact, I agree with so many things Sandra said, and from the standpoint of, who should even be qualified to run. There should be prerequisites to be able to run for office. And once getting in, once we met those prerequisites, and the electorate do see possible to vote us in, then they should continue to have some say in what happens after we get there. It's the same way I feel about term limits. I don't feel that you should have exclusive, be able to be a career politician for 40 years. No, that's not right. If you haven't done your job in 40 years, you're not going to do it again. It's nothing new that you can bring after 40 years that you probably haven't thought of before. So let someone else come in with fresh ideas and a fresh way of doing things, So to answer the question, I would not have a problem with that. I would not have a problem with that.
All right, very good. A few more comments, and then we're going to start to wrap things up here today. Some good numbers nonetheless. You guys are hanging in there. Miss Ann Rice joining us from Florida says, kaboom for your show with two excellent candidates. Justice will be served, says with John in office, and Chris, the government is in shambles and everyone is a hypocrite. Sounds like in Jamaica. Isle 2025 says, why are we always funding churches? I've always wondered, seems like a waste of funds. Can you speak to this, Ms. Julie, when it comes to good fiscal management? I know they always come up with some excuse, but most of us know it's just trying to buy votes and trying to pretend like, they're good Christians by funding churches. We've seen, for example, with the Nation Building Fund back in 2012 era, when McKeever Bush was doling out money to his supporters like it was, a glass of water. There was an Auditor General's report that highly scrutinized how the funds were allocated There was no real accountability involved for most of the people. Now, as a company who actually, my training company did receive funds, let me be very, very clear here, from the Nation Building Fund, although they still owe us a check for over $30,000, and we know we'll never get that. But nonetheless, we entered into a contract with then Premier's office, McKeeva Bush. You know, it had supposedly in his mind a particular vision, but it was money that was never, we talk about fiscal responsibility, it was money that was free for his office to dole out as he saw fit. And there were people who benefited from it, his political supporters, their children got scholarships, then there was no requirement for the children to have made a certain grade. I mean, it was just a free-for-all. What do you think of government programs like that? Do you believe with the Auditor General's conclusion that that should have never been put in place? And secondly, so many churches benefited from it. And in the end, after the Auditor General's report came out, a lot of the churches felt a way about being mentioned in the report and actually gave the money back. They should have never accepted it to begin with, but they gave back the money, I think, to the tunes of millions of dollars. So the second question is, how do you feel about churches accepting money from government?
Sandra, there are legitimate reasons why we would give money to organizations like churches. Say, for instance, in the instance where the church is going to be used as a hurricane shelter. I think that if you're going to spend that kind of money as a government for a church, it should not just be for church services on Sunday morning and Sunday night. You should see value for that money. For instance, if you say to that church, I'll give you such and such an amount of money if you use your facility as an after-school program, if we can use that as a place in the night that we can have adult classes, if we can use that as a hurricane shelter, if they can come on your compound and other people can use a basketball court that we helped you to build. I have seen that before. Government build basketball courts for churches, and then people from the community were not even allowed to go and use the court. Or they came and they said, if they came in their short pants, they said, oh no, you can't come on this compound with a short pants. So you have to go back and change and come back. Well, that is crazy. You know, that is not good value for money, because our young people, or people on a whole, is not going to benefit to in the long run from that. But if you say, you know, as a prerequisite for giving you that money, and you have your terms and conditions laid out, and they agree for that, and there's following up, there's oversight, going to be oversight on the money spent, and that these programs are taking place, and that you as a government are going to get involved and make sure, then I wouldn't have a problem in that instance. But to just give it just to say, well, okay, it's just going to be first Sunday morning service, I think that's, and a lot of times it's just done, let's face it, it's just to get praise, and it's just to get votes. So if it's for that purpose, then you're not going to follow up after you get elected. You know, you're not going to be the responsible MP to say, okay, I'm going to go back and see if such and such a church is being used in the evening for after school, or for adult literacy classes. And if you know you're not going to do that, then don't start enforcing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the politicians that are getting involved in this in any event. It should be the civil service. If a donation is going to be made to a church, there should be criteria in place beforehand. There should be contracts put in place, and there should be people
social programs.
Scrutinize
if there's social programs, Sandra, I can see it. Do you agree with me on the social program?
Yeah, I mean, we have public-private partnerships all the time. Right. So in principle, there might not be anything wrong with entering a public-private partnership with a church, with an organization like that. But again, there should be contracts in place. There should be very clear indicators of what one would expect to be delivered. There has to be deliverables, and it's the civil services responsibility to make sure if those contracts are breached in any way, there's then repercussions for breaching the contract. There's no such thing, as Rolston said earlier, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Nothing in the world.
No such thing as a free lunch. But that's what happens to us all the time. We do it for the wrong reasons, and then, you know, it's perceived by the public, you know, in other words, if we would do it for the right reasons and do the follow-up and put the criteria in place and put the contracts in place and have the follow-up, then nobody would say anything, because you could see the value. If you drive past you and you see, you know, 50 and 20 cars in that parking lot in the evening, then you know that a program is happening there that is benefiting our community. But if you see the parking lot empty at all times except for Sunday morning, then you know right there that's not good value. We have to start putting our money where it's going to benefit our children and our young people, our young adults that are not getting homes. I mean, there's over 1,000 families right now that are waiting. Up till yesterday, I talked to the National Housing, and they say they have over 1,000 applications. So those are the kind of things that we should be spending our money on, helping to do things like getting back to backing the government guaranteed loans with the commercial banks, and helping with, even if we needed to build several apartment complexes to house people. You don't have to always just build single homes. You need to maybe look at other ways. But I'm just saying, things like that, or education programs, are what we need to be spending money on as a government. Not all these willy-nilly things that are not going to benefit our people. Our people are suffering. They're asking for change. They're asking for their voices to be heard. And it's time that we stood up for the people that elect us, and the people that are suffering, the people that are living on the trees. I was so flabbergasted when I asked the little girl, I said, oh, I see you have your dollar house set up out there. I see you even have your little clothesline set up for your clothes. I said, you all must be having a lot of fun with that dollar house. And she said, Miss Julie, I'm sorry, but my uncle lives there. I was never so saddened, Sandra. You know, it's what is happening. Somebody told me just yesterday, said, if you think it's bad in West Bay, you just need to walk town after hours. Say start at midnight, and you will see how many people are sleeping on pavements, parked cars, right in the middle, the heart of Georgetown. And I mean, these are the kind of things that as representatives we need to look about, not parks and not things that are not going to benefit us. $50 million school. We saw how much money was spent on schools in the last 15 years. But look at our educational standards. It has not improved. It has progressively gotten worse. So that means we're not doing what we say we were going to do. As representatives, we're not being prudent in our decisions. And it all boils down to that.
All right, let's take a few comments, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Elizabeth says there should be no government involvement with churches at all, separation between church and state. Ms. Ann says, kaboom. Aisle 2025 says, I make too much to get a house from government, but not enough to get a loan from the banks. Makes 0 sense, and it's depressing. Cindy Reynolds says, good morning, all. Facts, Miss Julie. Candy says, Miss Julie is a good candidate. Go win. We need to get her in the house. All right, Miss Julie, let's go ahead and end things there. Thank you. Oh, yeah, said to give her a kaboom. There we go. People love that kaboom button.
Yes, they love that. And thank you so much. I have just enjoyed engaging, and I trust that people will tune in on Monday for the West Bay West Chamber Forum. And also I have a list of my meetings coming up. I'll be sure to post them on my website.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so very, very much. We appreciate you coming on the program and engaging with our listeners. Elizabeth says, please, West Bay West, vote for Julie Hunter. So time for a change in West Bay West, folks. We appreciate Miss Julie coming on the program. And we're going to, for those of you who missed her interview, her, get to know the candidate interview, we're going to actually replay that over the weekend so that you can see that. And by the way, I got to tell you, Miss Julie, the banana bread was so good. I had a couple slices myself. I gave Marlon a little piece, and then I had to give the rest away because I'm trying to lose weight, not gain.
Oh, my goodness. And Sandra, I've gotten so many. That just woke up all of my customers. And what they're doing now, everybody's saying, how come Sandra got banana bread and we didn't get any? You didn't remember us. And what time are you going to bake again? I'm getting so many inquiries. But I do love my people, and I'm going to take care of them once I am elected in Parliament. I just want them to know I love them. I might not always articulate it the way that you think I articulate it, but I just want you to know that I have you at heart. I love people. I will always serve you to the best of my ability. And you can always depend on me to listen to you, hear you out, and try to do something about the issues that you are facing. I have started with so many issues already, Sandra, and I just want to say that I'm helping to get people sorted, and I will continue to do that. That's my passion. Because I love to see people happy, and I think everybody deserves a chance to live and thrive in our country. I'm like some of the representatives have said, let's not make any apologies for saying Caymanians should have rights in their own country. We as Caymanians need to get back to taking care of our own, and that's what I intend to do, taking care of our people.
All right, beautiful. Aisle 2025 said, get her recipe, please. No. That's a family secret. She's not going to be sharing that.
Tortuga rum cakes don't give away their recipes. So Julie's banana breads are specific to Julie.
Denver says, taking Mac out. Darlene, thank you so much. She says, and some of the churchgoers listening this morning is going to be vexed because a lot of them, so-called churchgoers, believe the church and the money from their offering pans belong to them only. A lot of them is all for themselves. Selfish, cheap, and mean. Oh, Lord. Elizabeth. Kaboom! Another kaboom. Thank you, Julie Hunter. We'll see you next time.
And Sandra, I sure hope that they did not get the impression. I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm not all for helping churches. I never would say that. I'm just saying that we need to see value, and that we need, once we help, we need to see where it's going, and the accountability factor needs to play a major part.
All right, very well. Thank you, darling.
Have a good day, good weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, that's it. Have a beautiful weekend. Please be safe out there on the roadways. Don't drink and drive. Take your time. Let your neighbor out. Let somebody else out. There's no need to be in as much of a rush as we're always rushing to go where? Rushing to get in an accident. Don't make no sense. Get your dash cams, folks. I had a lady this morning said somebody slashed her tires there in town, and so she now needs a dash cam. Don't wait for something to happen before you see the value of having your dash cams. Get them. 5-piece kit, only $4.50. If you went on Amazon and you put those items individually in your cart, it's going to cost you more than that. So get your dash cams today. I still have a few left. I know government payday, I think, was this week. If you were waiting on government payday to reach out to me to get your dash cams, honey child, now is your chance to do so. All right, beautiful people, have a good one. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.